This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
3 minutes after 10 is the time. These opportunities don't come around very often, and when they do, they're never exactly the same, are they? If you think back to 2019, when the only members of the Parliamentary Conservative Party with integrity, backbone or conscience got chucked out. Some people who agreed with them didn't get chucked out because they stayed quiet or they voted against what they knew to be the country's best interests. When Boris Johnson unleashed Dominic Cummings upon his MPs, you would not be left in post if you could see what was obvious to everybody paying attention, the Brexit negotiations were going to lead to. So you lost people like Amber Rudd and Philip Hammond. I'm always drawn to the example of Philip Hammond to move from Chancellor of the Exchequer, the highest office in the land, to being deselected by your own constituency party in a matter of metaphorical minutes is, I think, close to unprecedented. So there's no objective algorithm for rebellion response. That's a felicitous phrase. There's no objective algorithm for rebellion response, by which I mean your answer to a question like, what do you think about rebels, will hopefully differ depending on the circumstances. If you're watching Star Wars, for example, hopefully you're all in favour of the rebels, or at least the Rebel Alliance. But if you're following UK politics, if you're still married to the idea that Brexit was going to be anything other than a disaster, then you may still harbour negative feelings towards the rebels in the Tory party in 2019. And I don't know, are we being overly ambitious? Is it a hiding to nothing to expect people to be able to answer these questions in a kind of vacuum, in a way that ignores your own feelings about the issue being rebelled upon? I think it is, actually. I don't know that I can do that. What do you think about rebels? Well, it depends what they're rebelling against. What have you got? Is that the line from Rebel Without a Cause? That there is a great observation there. A rebel without a cause is not necessarily somebody to be admired. Keir Starmer moved to reassert his grip on the Labour Party yesterday by removing the whip from 4 backbenchers for repeatedly breaching discipline. You may not have heard of all of them, or indeed any of them. Rachel Maskell's always struck me as a rather impressive parliamentarian. But Neil Duncan Jordan, Rachel Maskell, Brian Leishman and Chris Hinchcliffe were told yesterday afternoon that they had lost the party whip, with a Labour source describing them as persistent rebels. 3 more Labour MPs were stripped of government trade envoy roles. And it seems to be at odds with promises to rebuild or to mend relations with the backbenchers after the backbenchers forced that U-turn on the welfare cuts. So I'm going to move towards asking you, the 3 MPs who lost their trade envoy roles were Rosina Allen Khan, Bel Ribeiro Addy and Mohamed Yassin. I am going to ask you what you think about this, but Kevin's already been in touch to tell me how much he likes the Rebel MC. He's tough like a ninja and stings like a bee. That's a very pertinent contribution to the tough like a ninja and stings like a bee. Indeed he is. So I'm going to ask you what you think about this political moment, what you think about this very specific political moment. I'm not going to ask you what you think about rebels in general, because it would be a silly question, wouldn't it, ignoring the context of the rebellion. So I apologise for my little introduction at 9:45 that I record a moment before you hear it, and at which point I did intend to wonder about what we want our MPs to do. But it depends on the circumstances. Do you want your MP to rebel is a silly question if you haven't been told what they're rebelling against. So people who voted Labour last year voted Labour in order to give Keir Starmer and his senior colleagues a chance to fix some of the damage inflicted upon the country by 14 years of Tory rule. That's pretty close to an objective truth. I know that footballification will prevent some people from seeing it, and you can furiously disagree with the notion that Keir Starmer had a cat in hell's chance of turning the oil tanker around or doing anything beneficial to the state of the nation. But to argue that 14 years of Tory rule hadn't brought this country to its knees would be ridiculous. It would be to ignore austerity, to ignore Brexit, to ignore Liz Truss, which, tempting though it may be, is not something you can responsibly do while surveying the state of British politics. It would ignore all of the things that were done to us by politicians singularly ill-equipped for the task. So people who voted Labour in 2024 voted Labour in order to give Keir Starmer a chance to deliver change. That's what he kept talking about, delivering change. And backbench Labour MPs who owe their position in Parliament to him and a very successful campaign, the delivery of a loveless but nevertheless large landslide. I think he expected them to have their shoulder to the wheel for a little bit longer than a year before they started causing trouble for the government, up to and including trouble that essentially scuppered one of the key areas of policy that they sought to introduce. Reducing public spending in some areas is pretty close to essential. You may not like it, and you may not like the areas that they identified for as being particularly ripe for reduction, but if you could make things more efficient and therefore spend less money without punishing the needy, it would be a wonderful place to be. And the argument is that they should have had a chance to do it, and that chance was taken away by backbench Labour MPs. So what does he have to do? He has to send a message to backbench Labour MPs, a bit like the message that is sent to potential rioters by stiff sentences or people going on Twitter to incite pogroms and the burning of people in their beds. The sentences have to be stiff. The punishments have to be harsh. Pour encourager les autres. That's the whole point. The message being sent to backbench Labour MPs is, all right, if you don't like it, suck it up, snowflake, because we're here to govern, and the idea of the party of government being undermined or forced off course by its own MPs is not only typically blimmin' Labour, but it is quite catastrophically self-defeating. How can you present yourself to the country 4 years from now as a successful force for change if some of your key policies have been undone and undermined by your own troops, by your own MPs? In fact, staying with the military analogy, this is a little bit like desertion, isn't it? You are not fighting for the cause that you signed up to fight for, i.e. the Labour government. So you can make quite a poetic case, can't you, for clamping down very, very hard on these MPs, but you, like me, possibly admire a little bit of independence of thought. What I really wonder is whether both of us, whether either of us, can actually leave what we think about the policy. Can we have a phone in that's not about welfare cuts? It's not about the welfare bill, but is about how we want MPs to behave in the early days of a government charged with delivering significant change. So today's a day when I am almost certainly suffering from self-diagnosed footballification. I am almost certainly suffering from footballification because I think he's done the right thing. I think you can't have a policy programme scuppered and undermined and jeopardised at every turn by your own MPs. If it is something as epic as Brexit, and MPs are essentially directed by the national interest to stand up and say, the emperor is naked, that's a very different proposition from a major platform of policy being undone and undermined by your own MPs. What Keir Starmer has done, for a man who often seems in public a little bit ineffectual, what he has done is say to his own MPs, if you do that again, you will lose the whip. I will not tolerate this recidivist rebellion. You are either with us as we try to turn the oil tanker around, as we try to change the country, or you are against us. And if you are against us, then good luck to you as an independent on the back benches, but you cannot realistically expect the protection and the promotion of the Labour government, of the Labour Party, if you are deliberately and consciously acting against its own interests. 0345 6060973 is the number that you need. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's pretty obvious that if you are part of a Labour government, if you are part of a Labour majority, then your first responsibility is to your government. You could argue that your first responsibility is to your constituents, but the government would argue that it is acting in the interests of your constituents, i.e. all of them, i.e. in some sort of utilitarian sense. Reducing public spending is good for the public purse, is good for almost everybody. But what do you want your MP to do? I voted in 2 general elections for my local constituency MP because I was unenamoured of the party leadership. It was an uncomfortable period of UK politics for people, for thoughtful people on the left, as opposed to superannuated undergraduates. But I know my local MP quite well, and I admire her, and she does great work within the constituency, so I had no trouble putting a cross in her box, putting a cross next to her name. But that's quite an odd democratic exercise. That's not normal. Most of us don't do that. Who are you going to vote for in the next general election? Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch, or Ed Davey, or Nigel Farage. That's how British politics works, rightly or wrongly. That's what the party system and first past the post delivers. It is the leader of the main parties who accrues the votes, mostly. There'll be some constituency exceptions to that. And there'll be some independents who are magnificent followings in their own constituency, and that's healthy. That's a good thing. But if you go into Parliament as part of Keir Starmer's mission to change, and you stop him from doing so, how can you not expect to be punished? Okay, so with the admission that I am almost certainly suffering from a self-diagnosed case of footballification, I've now argued myself into thinking that this is actually true. If it's going to be a recidivist issue, if the fella can't get half of the things he wants to get done because his own MPs are going to stop him, then what is the point of them calling themselves Labour MPs, and what is the point of having a big majority in the first place? 0345 6060 973. You can't govern by focus group, as some people have chosen to do or tried to do in the past, but if they believe that these are the things they have to do to deliver what they believe they have to do to win the next election, then how can their own MPs be given licence to throw rotten tomatoes at the bills, at the legislation, at the policy proposals, at every opportunity? Rebellion should be rare, and when it is rare, it's noble. But if it becomes second nature, and if it extends beyond the usual gristly rump of often attention-seeking, self-righteous politicians and manages to infect the ability of a government to deliver what it wants to deliver, what do you expect the government to do? So I think that these 4 will get the whip back. I think that they are only have themselves to blame for being suspended. I'm troubled by Rachel Maskell's case because it seems to me she has always been motivated by sincere and genuine concern for the vulnerable. But she led opposition to the winter fuel cut, and she led opposition to welfare changes. And if you do that, if you lead opposition to somebody while claiming to be on the same team, what do you expect that somebody to do? What do you do with a football player who deliberately scores own goals? Who slots one home for the opposition 2 minutes before full time? What do you do? Pick them next? Put them up front in the next game? What do you do with soldiers who put their guns down? Or, God forbid, start firing at their own comrades? It's weird, isn't it? When is rebellion noble? And when is it self-defeating and dangerous? And there, in the space of a 14-minute introduction, I've completely undone my original intention not to have a conversation about the nature of rebellion, but to have a conversation instead very specifically about this one. But if you're not used to that by now, then you clearly haven't been paying attention. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say about both of those questions. What do you think about this moment in Keir Starmer's premiership? 0345 6060 973. And when is a rebellion righteous? As opposed to damaging and potentially dangerous? I don't know that I can answer that question, but I bet you can. Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 19 minutes after 10, and we are looking at rebellion in general and rebellion in particular. The latter because Keir Starmer has suspended the whip for 4 MPs who were particularly active in opposing or rebelling against welfare changes and the cut to the winter fuel allowance and or both. I've also got a little mystery for you, which you might quite like. Do you remember Liz Truss? She has been vocal, as you might expect, about the scandalous leak of data endangering Afghan allies of British forces this week. She has described it as she's described herself as being shocked by the secrecy and cover-up, which she described as wrong. Totally stunned by the story she is. What job do you think Liz Truss had while it was happening? Do you think she was A, assistant manager in a branch of Morrison's in Sutton Coldfield? Do you think she was B, Foreign Secretary, or do you think she was C, I don't know, running a market stall in Cleethorpes? What do you think Liz Truss was doing at the time of this thing that she's been absolutely shocked by and has demanded that heads roll? Yes, she was Foreign Secretary, prompting Ben Wallace, the former Defence Secretary, to say, "You were part of the cabinet that approved the relocation of the Arab Afghans. I'm shocked you can't remember your own role," he says. A masterclass in sarcasm. It's a wonderful example of what the wrong kind of rebellion looks like. But what does the right kind look like? Brian's in Edinburgh. Brian, what would you like to say?
Oh, hi, James. Brilliant to speak to you.
We'll see.
It's always great to listen to.
Go on.
Yeah, I do probably disagree with you on this one. So I think the comment you made earlier, which was an interesting one, who's the first responsibility to? I do believe in this case, because it wasn't in the manifesto, that the first responsibility is to the constituents and to the manifesto they were elected on.
But they haven't. There's no way of knowing what the constituents think about this particular policy.
Well, exactly. And the constituents won't just be Labour voters.
No.
So it's about representing everyone. And I think some of the rebels have said that, particularly the Scottish guy, Brian, can't remember his second name. But even Liz Truss in the recent select committee she went to, she said the changes had improved the bill because of co-consultation. Now, in the past, even with Blair, it was much more collegiate. It's not like an elected dictatorship where you're a football player and you're employed under contract.
Oh, well, I can't let that go unremarked. There are plenty of people who would argue the precise opposite of what you've just said. And in fact, I think that's when we first started hearing about government by essentially by Prime Minister as opposed to government. And in fact, collegiality and collective cabinet responsibility are generally speaking things of the past. So let me steer you towards the sort of central question.
Okay.
If the job of the government is to change the country and get re-elected, what do you do with MPs that are preventing it from doing the first and therefore quite possibly jeopardising the second?
So, for example, the change in the reversal in winter fuel is improving the possibilities of Labour getting re-elected. Now, the whole mess of it was due to the implication and the way, obviously, I think you must agree that they're not doing things in the best way, the leadership.
Absolutely not. So, and I think the reverse ferret made things worse by bringing in that 35,000 threshold. They could have sold the winter fuel. They could have done it better. They could have done it better in the first place, but it doesn't change the thrust of my question. I am in charge, and you are scuppering me. What am I supposed to do with you?
See, I think it's this language. It's got so extreme scuppering and
it's not extreme. Scuppering? So. Scuppering's a lovely little word.
It is.
Undermining me then. Undermining. Frustrating. You stop me when you're happy, okay? So I'll start with scuppering. That's too extreme. Okay. Frustrating. Undermining. Bothering. Irking. Annoying. Which one do you like?
Annoying. That's what they've been saying as well.
No, but you're frustrating my policies. It's worse than annoying.
The Labour movement is a collegiate, collective movement. It's not about one person saying... And I come back to my main point.
Okay,
it wasn't in the manifesto.
But they didn't know about the £22 billion black hole, or at least they weren't aware of the full scale of the necessity of spending changes.
They were. The SNP had been highlighting it for
and there it
6
is.
months before.
Why did I know that we would be blowing smoke up the SNP's backside within 5 minutes of you coming on the line?
I've been a Labour member for quite a while.
Okay, I'll take that back then. But the point being that all of their fiscal policies are predicated upon needing to do more than they thought they would have to do when they wrote the manifesto.
Okay.
And we can get stuck in the weeds of saying, well, they're being a bit disingenuous or they're being a bit dishonest. But look at the size of the problem. Look at the size of spending. Look at the projected increases in it. To argue that you can't try to put the brakes on some of it is to inherit la-la land.
It has been slightly overblown, the size of the change, but I would, and my response to that would be, yes, we're in a complete mess. Yes, most of that mess is due to huge inequality, and there are answers, and they're just not going there.
But that's a different conversation. I'm going to steer you back once again. So I'm trying to drive, and you are leaning over and trying to grab the wheel. And in my view, drivers into the hard shoulder or worse, drivers into oncoming traffic. What am I supposed to do with you?
I would come back with the analogy we're on a mass swim.
Hey, fair enough. 25 minutes after 10 is the time. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm driving a car and you're trying to crash it. What should I do with you? Niamh is in Chiswick. Niamh, what would you like to say?
Oh, hello, James.
Hello, Niamh.
Well, I think the thing about whether or not you partake in a rebellion really is determined by what is your leader doing. So I think Keir Starmer and the introduction of cuts to disability benefits was probably the most un-Labour policy that I've ever sort of seen the Labour Party produce. And I speak as a Labour Party member and voter. And, you know, the constituencies up and down the country, we've got Labour MPs that wafer thin majorities. And all of the MPs who voted for the amendment to stop this policy going through rightly realise this is not a Labour policy.
And when do they explain to all of their voters why their taxes are going to have to go up by even more than they would have done anyway?
Well, I think there's a very strong case for taxes being raised on people who can afford it. I think there's a lot of people in the country, including you, probably, who could afford to pay more tax. I've often heard you say that. And I'm afraid I can't cover the billions of pounds that the public purse loses as a consequence of rewriting the disability or the welfare bill. I'm very aware.
I'll do my bit, Niamh. But what I think you and these rebellious MPs overlook is the fiscal realities that the government is facing, and the fact that the money that they need has to come from somewhere. If you don't like the place they've got it from, it is contingent upon you to tell the people who will be required to pay it where it is going to come from. And the wealth tax, which I'm sort of broadly in favour of, a wealth tax, is in danger of sounding like a magic money tree at the moment. It's a bit like when my children got money for their birthday and asked if they could spend it again later in the day. It can't be the answer. Taking money off the rich can't be the answer to every single economic problem that the country faces. And the government is trying to do something, and it's been prevented from doing so by the MPs you admire. So what should they do with those MPs?
Well, I think the starting premise is that you don't take money from the poorest in society who simply are not in a position to bear the burden.
Well, what about if you phrase it differently and say you give them less?
Well, I think, for example, one of the policies that they might have thought about is having the whole business of PIPs means tested. So it's given to people regardless of whether or not they've got capital in the bank or they've got a good income. It's something that's given because of your disability. There will be those in society who have a disability who don't need the assistance of PIPs.
Just same with the winter fuel allowance, and look how that went.
Well, I think the winter fuel allowance, the reason that was such a spectacular own goal is because the threshold at which people were going to have the winter fuel taken away was just set too low. Basically, if you had £5 more than the basic state pension, you became disentitled. So the question remains: what do you think, regardless of whether you like or don't like what a government is doing? What do you think a government should do to people frustrating its agenda? Just sort of shake them by the hand and say thank you, or
try and win themselves the space to be judged on what they actually want to do, as opposed to stopping them from doing it?
Well, I strongly believe the Labour Party traditionally has been a party where policies don't just get pronounced from the top.
I'm going to insist, if I may, politely, that you answer my question. Here are some people who have completely scuppered key areas of policy for a government that's been in power for a year and charged itself with introducing major changes to a scuppered country. What should be done to the people that are stopping the government, the elected Labour government, from doing what they think they were elected to do?
Well, I think basically 4 people have been suspended and 3 people have sort of had their role demoted for these trade people. I think the other 100 people or whatever who voted for or who would have voted for the amendment as it was originally put, nothing's happened to them. So why make an example of these 4 people?
Pour encourager les autres, as you well know. I mean, they are the deterrent. They are the case studies. They are the people being used to say, do it again and you'll end up like them.
Well, I think that's not the right approach.
So what is the right approach?
The right approach.
Here is a government trying to deliver what it believes is necessary, with a majority, with an election majority to do so, with a parliamentary majority to do so. What do you do to the people nominally on your side who are stopping you from doing so? Well,
when the U-turn was announced, people came on national media and talked to the press and said, we're listening, we realise sometimes that we haven't consulted properly, we need to take another look at that.
Not so much on the welfare bill, certainly on the winter fuel bill, but you're quite obviously not answering my question, which is fair enough, because to answer it, you'd have to say, you have to let them carry on ruining Labour's chances of actually doing what they want to do.
Absolutely not.
Well,
I think if the policy that you've abandoned because you need to take another look at it. No.
This is about the future, not the past. This is about saying to the rebels you've just identified as having largely not been punished, if you do this again, you will end up like Duncan, Jordan, Maskell, Leishman and Hinchcliffe. What could they do differently except invite more rebellion?
I think it's very rare to have a rebellion of that size.
We've had 2 in less than a year.
Yeah, but on welfare issues, I think most people, particularly the way
let's talk about welfare. I mean, why won't you just say what you think they should do instead, which is just bow every time there's a rebellion?
Well, I think the reality is that they had to, but I think that they've got to be more inclusive.
But they can't. They can't be a government if they're going to bow every time there's a rebellion. They'll never get anything done. Listen, it's a bit unfair of me, disingenuous even, to insist that we separate the detail away from the principle. But of course, it won't work like that. When these people get a kind of wind in their sails, they forget why they're in Parliament. They're in Parliament because people elected Keir Starmer to be Prime Minister. And if they stop him from doing what he wants to... I want to judge him in 4 years' time on the delivery of what he wanted to deliver, not on what Neil Duncan Jordan thought should be delivered or what Chris Hinchcliffe thought should be delivered. I want them to be judged on their failure or success in delivering what they wanted to deliver. And so not letting them do it, in some circumstances, absolutely, you can justify it, but not in every circumstance, which is what they're worried about happening in the future, which is why they've taken the action that they've taken. Thank you, Niamh. 10:32 is the time. Dominic Ellis has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
35 is the time. This is how you send criticism to a radio programme. Hi, James. I love you like a brother, but your pronunciation of pour encourager les autres makes me think that French, which can be such a beautiful and elegant language, really isn't your forte. It reminds me of Brad Pitt's character attempting to pass himself off as an Italian in the movie Inglourious, and there's a word that Ofcom probably won't let me say. Good show otherwise. Best K. I'm not trying to sound French. I mean, I don't know how to say it. We may return to that shortly. That was big. How much attention were you paying to the news bulletin? We didn't see that coming. We thought there might be something in the wind at 1 o'clock today. That's when we thought this announcement was going to come. They've brought it forward. Obviously unhappy with the tone of this programme. So they've attempted to change the news agenda by announcing early plans to bring the vote to 16 and 17-year-olds. Just think about that. Have you got a 13-year-old at home? Have you got a 13-year-old at home? They're voting in the next election. Good or bad? It's all good, right? Democratic engagement, encouraging people to pay a bit of attention, hopefully moulding a media moving forward that will help them arrive at informed decisions? Or is it all bad? 13-year-old, he won't get off TikTok for long enough to cast a flipping vote. He'll probably vote for whoever promises to give him the most jelly babies. You've got a 13-year-old at home, she's getting a vote in the next election. It's interesting, right? It's an interesting way of looking at it. And it doesn't end there. This is meaty, this strategy paper. They're going to review voter ID, which can only be a good thing. You will be able to use an UK-issued bank card as an accepted form of ID at the polling station. There'll be more digital options to support voters and polling station staff. The veteran card will be acceptable. A UK driving licence will be acceptable at polling stations when they become available in digital format. All sorts of ways to increase the number of people who are able and eligible to vote. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? We're having a conversation about democracy, about the exercise of democracy, and quite a few people pointing out that rebellions are a crucial part of democracy. But my question is, what do you do with the rebels? Recognising even the importance, the crucial nature of it. But what do you do with them? The number of people who vote, the more the merrier, would be a fairly simple analysis of this. I think it's already 16 in Scotland. Doesn't seem to have done them any harm. I think we'll move on to this at 11 o'clock. Or we may work it in. We may try and meld it with the conversation that we're currently having, which is about rebellions. 4 Labour MPs suspended for rebelling, for leading rebellions on issues that many people would argue were in defence of Labour values. But that is an arguably, and when I use the word arguably, it means I'm exploring a position I don't necessarily hold. It's an arguably pointless claim. Because, I mean, unless you don't want the current government to deliver what the current government wants to deliver, then talking about Labour values in opposition to what a Labour government is trying to do is, well, it's both historically typical and profoundly unhelpful. You almost don't need an opposition when you've got Labour in power, traditionally. Blair was a bit of an exception, but traditionally they will tear themselves to shreds given the slightest opportunity in a way that historically the Tory party didn't used to do. So what do you do with the rebels? Your stance on rebels, writes Jack, depends on whether or not you worked on the Death Star. What do you do with the rebels is a very loaded and leading question, says Aftab. Well, I'll rephrase it. You're like the first fella complaining that the word scuppered was too extreme. What do you do to people on your team who stop you from doing what you think you have to do? And that phrase there at the end is absolutely essential to this conversation. Doing what they think they have to do. Doing what they think they have to do to A, turn the country around, and B, get re-elected. Now, it may well be that some of these rebels have better ideas. Okay, but let's find a better word than rebels. Backbenchers. Some of these backbenchers have very different ideas about what needs to be done to improve the country and get re-elected, in which case they can challenge the leadership through the normal democratic channels. But the more you stop the leader from trying to do, unless you don't trust him at all, unless you think he's a Boris Johnson figure, in which case that's a different conversation. You think he's not honest, he's not acting in good faith. If he does what he thinks is necessary and it turns out to be a terrible mistake, judge him then. But if you stop him from doing what he thinks is necessary, what do you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen? 10:40 is the time. 0345 6060 is the number that you need. Claire's in York. Claire, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, Claire.
Rachel Maskell is my MP, and I just cannot stress enough what an excellent, highly thought of MP she is in York. And she is not in that position because of Keir Starmer. She has been there for decades. My mum used to knock on doors through elections, and in the Corbyn years, I've never seen my mum look so depressed when she came back, and yet she was still voted for despite who was the head, because she's so highly thought of. And she absolutely stands up for constituents, and that is her job. She is very, very compassionate. Now, what I admire about her in her rebellion is that she's not angry and reactive and like some rebels. She was very magnanimous. She was very conciliatory. She was very balanced. She was very supportive of Starmer in her interviews over the rebellion. And even last night, she was obviously, her eyes were red. You could tell she had been so shaken and upset with how
I've got the footage of that. I'm going to play it to you shortly. for people who haven't heard it, because I think you're right. And she's a bit of the fly in the ointment of my position this morning, isn't she? Because she doesn't seem to deserve the treatment that she's received.
She absolutely does not. And she was very open in that she said, yes, we do need welfare reform. And she says, and I want to work with Keir Starmer to make it a fairer reform. And it also makes a mockery of what Keir Starmer said. And I'm very much a supporter of Keir Starmer. I supported the winter fuel allowance. I supported him suspending people over the child cap. As much as I want the child cap lifted, it was very clear in their election that they weren't going to do that immediately. So I supported him in suspending that. This is different. And he said that he had listened and learned from the mistakes over this welfare reform. And if he's now just saying, I'm going to make an example of them, then that means he hasn't learned and listened, and he hasn't realised he's made a mistake. And it makes a mockery of him saying that now.
I think you've got me over a barrel here, Claire. I'm not going to lie.
I really truly thought that he had learned from that, and that he was what's the word?
Well, remember that Rachel Maskell led the rebellion to the one you liked. She led the rebellion against the winter fuel allowance as well. So, I mean, at best, you're...
do you know what?
At best, that makes your support 50-50. So you didn't support her on that one, but you did support her on the other one. His position is that he can't run the risk of having... There was the planning bill, wasn't there? There was the welfare changes. There was the winter fuel allowance. I mean, it is as if... It's as if he's just trying to take the bit out of the mouth of the parliamentary party and remind them who's actually in the saddle.
I think he's shooting his foot to spite it. He really is, because Rachel's constituents are totally behind her, and to alienate.
You're right, by the way. I mean, using my anecdotal evidence of inboxes and contributors, there seems to be a lot more feeling about Rachel Maskell's suspension than there is about anybody else's. Most of the others, I think it's fair to say, we possibly hadn't heard of much previously.
And I contacted her over the winter fuel allowance and explained why I thought she was wrong. But then my mum was my mum's also contacted her, and she's a pensioner, and explained why she was wrong. But then she will have had an overwhelming amount of people that did contact her and say that they were for it, that they weren't for it. So she listens to her constituents, and I think that is what constituent MPs should be.
Well, we don't know that, do we? Most people are probably broadly in favour of welfare cuts. If you look at national polling, you've got a danger, which I'm not criticising you, but I'm just pointing out that we don't know what the whole constituency thinks. There's people in that constituency who will vote for Farage. There's Tories there as well. So what you're talking about is the constituents that you agree with. She should listen to them. Well,
I think welfare reform is necessary, but I think the way it was done, I think we can all agree it was wrong. And that
so there's two ways here.
To say.
So when I'm on my high horse demanding that people tell me what could have been done differently, you've managed to answer that question without me even asking you. You invite people like Rachel Maskell into the tent.
Exactly.
And help them frame a preferable policy.
He needs her as an ally, not as an adversary, and he doesn't need her vote as adversaries either.
Have you successfully dismantled my demand that we somehow separate the detail or the broader question of rebellion from the specific detail of this one? You are addressing directly the specific detail of this rebellion.
Well, you're a fan of always saying there's context.
Yeah, exactly that. And the context
and there is context here.
What about the argument that he has to nip rebellions, plural, in the bud, regardless of whether we agree with the cause that is leading the rebellion or not?
I think he's shown that he can do that, but I think this was a case of beyond that, because one, it wasn't in the manifesto, and two, Rachel wasn't asking for no welfare reform. She was just asking for it to be rethought out. And he also said that he understood that. He said he stood up in the Houses of Parliament, said he understood it, he understood the mistakes, and they were going to go back and relook at it. Now that all sounds like a nonsense. And
unless he comes out and squares that circle sharpish, then your position is going to be pretty close to unassailable, isn't it? I mean, it is a bad look to say we're listening, we've learned, and then we're firing the people or we're suspending the people that were leading the exercise that led us to listen and learn. Claire, that was brilliant. Thank you. 10:46 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
10:49 is the time, and 4 MPs have lost the Labour whip as Keir Starmer, quotes, moves to reassert his grip on the Labour Party. It could work and be unpopular. And it is unpopular, at least to people who call into this or have called into this programme today. Not unanimously unpopular, because the idea of opening the door to rebellion after rebellion after rebellion is profoundly unattractive. But if you are profoundly troubled by, particularly the cuts to disability allowances that were in the original welfare bill, then you will be on the side of the people that prompted a U-turn, that prompted a change, and therefore seeing them be punished, or to use one unnamed Labour MP quoted in The Guardian today, to see them receive a punishment beating is not good. There are elements around number 10 who now want to lash out vindictively rather than acknowledge the mistakes that were made. The fact that the government was humiliated was of its own making, says this anonymous MP from the left of the party. So 2 things can be true at the same time. That they will tear down their own government if the wind remains in their sails, but the 2 biggest U-turns that they've undertaken were things they should have seen coming and would have seen coming if they had been paying more attention. And then we're back to this character that people keep telling me about. I think that's who they are discussing when they say elements in Downing Street lashing out vindictively. And that would be Morgan McSweeney, and it would very much fit Claire's analysis of how Rachel Maskell, her MP up in York, has been treated. Someone being lashed out at vindictively. 10:51 is the time. Paul is in Twickenham. Paul, what do you think?
James, I ask for your forbearance. I make 4 short points, and I'd be grateful if you'd let me make them before you shoot them down.
We'll James, see. I can't make any promises.
Very well. First point, James, is I watched the welfare debate on the Parliament channel, and I watch a lot of parliamentary debates. Keir Starmer wasn't there. And I think I know he has a lot on his plate, but he should have been there to listen to people who were putting different views from his own. And I think it's the job of the Prime Minister at key critical debates to be there, to hear the passion.
Do we know where he was?
No.
He could have been at a NATO meeting or something like that, could he, or not?
Right, okay. He should. I never see him in Parliament other than at the Prime Minister's question time. Okay. And I hear a lot of MPs say they just don't know him. They've never met him. My second point, James, is when I saw what would happen to these MPs, particularly Rachel Maskell. I went to university at York, and I remember being told about the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, fantastically, respectable social inquiry. And Rachel speaks, and your previous speaker, Claire, dealt with that point. But when I saw what was done with this with suspending these MPs, it reminded me of the clip of film I'd seen a few days previously of Saddam Hussein when the Ba'ath Party finally came into power, and he called a conference and he lined up, a couple of hundred of his so-called elite followers, and he picked out 6 or 7 of them for immediate execution by firing squad by the other members there. And
it's not quite the same as having the whip suspended almost certainly temporarily.
Yeah, James, I'm simply making a point about the spirit of the thing. In my view, they shouldn't...
I can see why you didn't want me to interrupt you. But you can't compare suspending the whip of 4 MPs to sending out disloyal colleagues to be shot by firing squad.
I'll make my other 2 points, James.
Well, I don't know. They better be better than the last one. Go on.
Okay, fine. The next points concern loyalty. That is when...
Go on, take your time. I'm only teasing you. I'm only teasing you. Take your time.
Yeah, loyalty, James, I was reminded of when King David in the Old Testament committed adultery and murder, and the prophet Nathan went to him and basically said, "You are the man who's done this," because King David had hidden it. And he
you know what? I think we all thought about that when we read this story this morning. If anyone who didn't think about the prophet Nathan and King David, they need to.
And King David did not have Nathan executed for speaking the truth to him.
And point
finally,
4.
James, my final point, James, if you let me make it, is Amos in the Old Testament. He was a farmer. And he was a prophet, but he was a farmer.
Yes.
And he accused
I thought it was a pub
people
landlord.
of the time
Yes.
of grinding the faces of the poor. And I think the Labour MPs who were elected didn't expect that the leadership of the Labour Party would effectively embark on a course of action which could be seen as grinding the faces of the poor. And loyalty, in my view, requires that they speak out against it. And your previous caller made such a good point about inviting them into the tent and coming to a collegiate approach so that it's not a presidential system. The Labour Party is a party. In fact, it's even called the Labour and Cooperative Party, isn't it? A lot of MPs, when they appear,
they do. But that's not the adjective.
James.
That's not the adjective cooperative. It's a reference to the cooperative movement, I think. Actually, I probably need to check that. Paul, thank you. I can see why you were keen for me not to interrupt you. I think if I hadn't agreed cautiously to respect that request, I might have intervened a little more robustly once the prophet Nathan got involved in the conversation, or possibly when Saddam Hussein did. But hey, you got all 4 points across, for which I'm grateful. 10:55 is the time. Prime Minister speaking at this moment at the Civil Society Summit and delivering something which, however you dice it, is substantive and free. That's an interesting point. You know, in many ways, they're the holy grail of policies, things that might actually nudge needles, but don't involve finding more money, whether through cutting money currently being given to people or by taking more money from people by way of taxes. So we will find out more about this extraordinary speech and I think largely unexpected intervention on all sorts of fronts. Foreign funding, actual eligibility for voting, and crucially, the headline story will be extending votes to 16 and 17-year-olds, which means you've got a 13-year-old in your family, they can vote in the next general... Almost certainly, they can vote in the next general election. 10:56 is the time. Alison is in Bury St Edmunds. Alison, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Thanks for taking my call. I'd just like to make a quick point that people seem to be missing in all this. I think everybody thinks that they were just... the whip was suspended just like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't. All these 4 MPs had a discussion meeting with the Chief Whip after PMQs yesterday, something that was verified in the discussion with Andrew Marr by one of them last night.
Yes.
And he also said it was quite a frank conversation. So obviously the Chief Whip, whose ultimate decision it is to remove the whip, whether permanently or temporarily, wasn't happy with that discussion because they obviously tried to pinpoint them in the right way, and decided after those conversations, okay, we'll remove it temporarily. So he'd
have been looking for reassurances that you were going to stop trying to grab the steering wheel and steer us in directions we don't want to go. And I guess this got a conversation, as I don't know if it's the right word to use, as I feared it would. It is going to depend in part on what you feel about directions, not what you feel about interference, not what you feel about frustration. And that's why there's almost a cognitive dissonance here.
Absolutely. And I think if I worked, say, in the corporate sector or in a business, and I was veering off away from the ethos of that business, my manager would have me in and say, well, you're not quite right for the company, and possibly give me the sack. But they haven't. They haven't had it taken off totally. I agree with if they've got something to say and they're against something the government has put out, say it, vote against it. But if it's consistent and it's all the time, maybe they're in the wrong party. I don't know, just my thoughts.
And of course, 47 Labour MPs defied the whip despite the concessions. I think that's been missing from this conversation as well. So even after the watering downs or the U-turns or the rest of it had been undertaken, 47 MPs, of whom these 4 have become sort of standard bearers, I don't know if all 4 of them were part of the 47, but that's what they're being used as. Examples, if you like, with which to steer everybody else onto a slightly more cooperative course. That has been missing from the conversation as well. 10:58 is the time. Squeeze in one more call, I think, from Joseph, who's in Stroud. Joseph, what would you like to say?
Right, okay, so I think they've actually gone soft. I think they should actually have gone further and removed the whip permanently. And the reason for that is because
You're
really...
a badass.
Because this allows the backbenchers, the Can't Do Math Brigade in the Labour Party to continue to sit and wallow in the bath, the warm bath that says, oh, we don't have to worry about the costs. No. After 14 years of the Tories and Brexit, the dire economic situation that the UK is in means that we do not have room for them to go around being noble. There's no money for that. We've not made provisions for that.
You highlight a poll, and there is another poll, which is the sort of magic money tree poll. So on one extreme, you have people saying, oh, I fully accept the need to save money or raise money, but we can't do it like this. There's lots of other ways we can do it. And that is becoming perilously close to the rhetoric of magic money trees. But your argument is the situation is so dire, and this is something that sounds a bit Starmerish and not entirely persuasive. The situation is so dire that it justifies absolutely everything, including the unconscionable. So I don't know.
Unfortunately, we are in that position.
Well, do you really think we are the unconscionable? What if they were to put a massive tax on everyone called Joseph? How would you feel about that?
I know they're going to do it. They're going to do
everyone called Joseph?
Soon. They're going to do a tooth tax soon. They're going to come around and tax my teeth. And you know what? That's what's going to need. We're about to go to war with Russia. Come on.
All human. Is it a full moon at the moment? All Human Life is here today. Contributor of the day so far, not on the phones, on the text, is Gary. And this is quite niche, but very clever. I don't know whether you need to have a degree of biblical knowledge to understand why this message tickled me so much. But Gary's been in touch to say, sometimes, James, you have the patience of Job.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 4 minutes after 11. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. We should probably have brought that Diane Abbott story into our conversation about whip withdrawals and rebellions, because she appears to have doubled down on the thing that she apologised for a couple of years ago and that saw her suspended, her whip suspended before being restored. And that is the situation that Keir Starmer is trying to deal with. Unfortunate, I think, because what Diane Abbott said was not simply that the racism experienced by Irish or Jewish people is different from racism experienced by people of colour. She denied that Jewish, Irish or traveller people can experience racism. She said they undoubtedly experience prejudice, and then compared the experience of Jews and travellers and the Irish to being a redhead. So it was quite right that she withdrew and apologised, and frankly quite bizarre that she has elected to reopen that particular can of worms. But that's what happens when a leader is not robust enough with, quotes, rebellions, end quotes. But that's not what we're talking about next. What we're talking about next is a speech that Keir Starmer has just delivered that is, well, it's pretty hefty, Aggie Chambray.
It's pretty hefty indeed. So he has said, and there has been a statement, that 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election. This is the first time that the age has been reduced to vote since 1969. Then it was reduced from 21 to 18. And now, as I say, 16 and 17-year-olds will be able to vote in the next general election. This was a manifesto commitment, but it wasn't in their first King's speech. There were a few question marks over it, but now saying just before those MPs go into recess for summer, this will happen by the next general election. It also brings England in line with Scotland and Wales, where 16 and 17-year-olds are already able to vote, and will add 1.5 million people to the electoral register at the next general election. 9.5 million people will now be able to vote. And I think the point has been made for a long time that if you are able to work, if you're able to pay taxes, serve in the military, get married, drive at 17 too, why can't you vote? So that argument has been made for a long time, and as I say, it was in the general election Labour manifesto. It's going to be
more, isn't there? There's a lot. Do we know why? Did you know this was coming? Were your lot aware of this being on the horizon?
Well, Is in the 16 and 17-year-olds
All of
being
this,
able
all
to
of
vote.
These announcements today.
No, we didn't. I mean, it's
strange.
that day before recess. It's the day before. Well, recess doesn't start till Wednesday, but it feels like one of those days that the Cabinet Office is going to put out an awful lot of statements and make an awful lot of announcements just before everyone goes off. Because as I told you yesterday, MPs are here Monday and Tuesday next week, but it's a one-line whip. So this feels, for many people, like the final day. So that's not it. No, there is also going to be new changes for what kind of ID will be accepted at a polling station. So now you'll be able to take different bank card, as well as a passport, as well as a veteran card, as well as a UK driving licence. And this one, James, I think you'll find this really interesting. This is about possible potential foreign interference and how to stop foreign interference and that kind of donations coming into our politics. And this follows Elon Musk and the rumours that he was going to use the UK arm of X to plunge an awful lot of money into Reform UK. Again, this was actually something that the Labour Party had committed to in their manifesto. But today they are also announcing major new changes they say will boost transparency and accountability in politics by closing loopholes that will allow foreign donors via shell companies to influence UK political parties. And they're going to enforce heavier fines up to £500,000.
They said they weren't going to do that. Oh, well, no, they said they weren't going to do it now. And now they have done it now. So this would be preventing anyone who's not here, not a citizen of this country, from using a company or anything to donate to a major political party. Had Musk said he was going to give to Reform UK, because then he fell out with Farage.
Yes.
And that, well, he falls out with everyone eventually, doesn't he, it seems. But that is definitely what this... It isn't necessarily designed to address, but that falls into the purview of the policy.
Exactly. This is a massive tightening up of the rules. So Elon Musk never actually said he was going to do it. There was reports that he was going to do it. It looked like he was going to do it. He said, maybe I'll do it. And then he fell out with Nigel Farage, although they say they are still friends.
Right.
So that is another one. And there's that. There's the changes to voting system, and it means that you will be able to take different types of ID to go and vote. So we're still 3-4 years out from the general election, but this is a big moment.
Rees-Mogg let the cat out of the bag on the ID one, didn't he? He said that he actually admitted that they'd done it in the hope of excluding younger people from voting because they'd be less likely to have ID. And in fact, I think he said we shot ourselves in the foot, because it turned out that it was older people who got more confused by the new rules and were, I don't know if he had any statistical evidence for this, but he certainly let the cat out of the bag. Extending the vote to as many citizens as possible should be a good thing. Who's likely to have a problem with this?
Well, it's hard to argue against it, isn't it? Unless you say that 16 and 17-year-olds aren't ready to vote, they're still at school, they should wait longer. But it will be really interesting to see who it benefits, because typically younger people are more likely to vote for Labour,
still
for the Greens, yes.
Right.
So there was 18 to 24 in May of this year. 18 to 24-year-olds. I know it's not 16, 17-year-olds, but 18 to 24-year-olds were most likely to vote Labour, second most likely to vote for the Green Party. So I think those are probably still the top parties. But Reform UK are interesting lots and lots of young people. I think this probably won't be particularly beneficial for the Conservatives. They worry increasingly that lots of their voters are actually dying out. But it could genuinely shift our politics, because lots of the way that our politics is entirely geared is towards older voters. And I think part of the reason that the triple lock exists, part of the reason that the winter fuel was such a furore, such a row, is because a lot of our politics is geared towards older people. So potentially bringing in these 1.5 million new people could potentially change the dial on that front too.
We had Eliza Philby here yesterday, whose book Inheritocracy does much more than simply critique what you've just described. It explains it, underpins it, and warns about what the consequences of that would be. I imagine she would welcome this, because it does shift political focus away from older generations who have, whether they realise it or not, been treated incredibly favourably by successive governments of every persuasion, to younger generations. A 16-year-old saying, why should I vote for you, is going to want an answer that involves things that are specific to 16 and 17-year-olds, at least, possibly.
Definitely. And also, I wonder how it will change, because we've already seen a massive increase in people watching lots of TikTok videos and politics. And if you now include, as they are going to do at the next general election, these 1.5 million people who we know are on their phones much more than those older generations, are watching much more TikTok, much more Instagram, much more digital videos. And we know that Reform UK have an extremely good digital presence, but we also know the Greens are getting better at that. Labour are trying hard too. How will that impact things too? So I think this could genuinely have a massive impact on our politics. Yet again, we keep seeing seismic shifts in our politics.
Yes, we do. And of course, misinformation and lies will become more dangerous the more voters have access to them. So Farage deciding that Andrew Tate is a trustworthy news source and using his nonsense in order to provoke people into certain behaviours becomes electorally significant as well as socially significant. So perhaps there'll be something on the horizon in that field as well, because at the moment, of course, you can break the law on social media and not have your posts removed. Thank you, Aggie. I should probably have opened up the phone lines at 11 o'clock on this, because it was fairly obvious what the question was going to be. But I want to do what I always do and be slightly annoying. How is this debate going to be any different from the one in 1969? There wasn't any phone-in radio in 1969. How on earth did anybody ever know what to think if there wasn't any phone-in radio? In 1969, they reduced the age of voting from 21 to 18. Had I been presenting a programme on this radio station, which didn't actually exist, in 1969, I would probably have sounded a bit like this, I would probably have signed it a bit like this, and I would have asked, how do you feel about the prospect of the 18-year-old in your life being allowed to vote in the next general election? 03456060973. I would not have said, because there wouldn't have been a phone-in show. But I don't even know how many people listening to this, again, I've probably just offended you if you can actually remember what the debate in 1969. I hadn't even been born when the age came down from 21 to 18. But how will this debate be different? Should this debate be different? Is it just the question of a needle nudging? So 21 was the age at which point a certain type of personality thinks, well, things are perfectly fine. Why are they changing it? And 18 is currently the things are perfectly fine. Why are they changing it? And tomorrow's 16. Well, things are perfectly fine. Why? I don't think they'll ever go lower than 16. Although I could probably... certainly in a sixth form debating society, I could probably muster up an argument that you should be able to vote from the moment you start secondary school. You're probably more affected by government policy when you are young than when you are old. I get, obviously, pensions notwithstanding, but everything else, education, the military, all the workplace, all of those things. Sorry, I'm a bit disturbed by the thought of a world without phone-in radio now. I've discombobulated myself. How awful. That's a terrible dystopia that we've just conjured up. That would be, geez. So that's the question. What do you reckon? Why on earth would you not like this? 03456060973. I've got my internal alarm bell ringing. I don't like hardy perennials. I'm not talking about gardening, horticulture. I'm talking about my job. And that's why you don't hear us say, should we bring back the death penalty? Or how should we stop the boats? I don't like lazy, obvious questions that don't admit very interesting answers. I can sound a little bit snobbish when I say this, and for that I do genuinely apologise. But this is in danger of being a hardy perennial. Should 16 and 7... I mean, I can't say, don't ring me unless you've got something interesting to say, because everybody thinks they've got something interesting to say. I think I'm fascinating, and I bore you rigid every day. So, pot kettle. But I don't know. Are there any arguments in this sphere that we haven't heard before? 03456060973. Well, I mean, if we were being very creative and imaginative, you could... Well, you can't, though, can you? Because you could say, well, should there be a cut-off point for voters? But then I had the great privilege of interviewing Bernie Sanders on stage a few weeks ago in London. And albeit that he's not eligible to vote in general elections in this country, he's quite an old fella and he is as sharp as a tack. So the idea that there would be a cut-off point based upon the general population's mental acuity is possibly as absurd as arguing that because you know a 16-year-old who won't get off TikTok for long enough to read a news article, that therefore all of them shouldn't get the vote. Okay, here's the thing. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful thing that will extend the franchise to parts of the population who are in severe danger of being completely alienated by politics. The only fly in the ointment of this announcement is if they don't do anything with it. If they don't actually see this as an opportunity to start directly addressing young people, making politics relevant to them and making policies that are attractive to them. Votes for 16 and 17-year-olds are going to be on the statute book by the time of the next general election. It means if you're 13 or 14 today, you're getting a vote in the next general election. What do you think about this on every imaginable level? What it does to the franchise, what it does to the electorate, what it does potentially to election results, what it says about society, and also what it says about this government. It's bold, it's new, it's fresh, and it is almost entirely positive. Discuss. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. It's 11:17.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 19 minutes after 11. Derek's in Edinburgh. He says, you sound like Ronnie Barker when you do your 1969 radio voice. I'd take that. That's a win, isn't it? This is London. 11:19 is the time. I think I could get this out early. If you're thinking of ringing in to say you can't trust 16-year-olds to vote, they don't do critical thinking, they're not properly across the facts, I've got one word for you. Can you guess what that word is? Should we do it all together? Should we shout it out all together? Don't do this if you're at work or in church, listening on a little earbud or something, or in a library. If you are a person of a certain age, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't think young people should have the vote because they don't understand things. They don't do the critical thinking. They don't know stuff. One word. You know what it is, right? Come on. It should be actually painted onto the white cliffs of Dover as a warning to all comers. What a plague island we've become. If you think young people can't be trusted to vote because they're not across the facts and you voted for Brexit, then I fully accept that it's far too late for you to give your head a wobble. But my goodness me, you've got some front. How many people voted to become the first population in the history of humanity to impose economic sanctions on itself because they thought that was a small price to pay to indulge their hatred of foreigners, or to boast about having swallowed the snake oil and lies of people like Farage and Boris Johnson and Dominic Bloomin' Raab. Oh no, we can't trust 16-year-olds to vote. How did you vote in the referendum? I voted for Brexit. How's that going for you? Oh well, it hasn't been delivered. It's been scuppered by Remainers. It's very important that people understand things before they form their opinions. Say the people who understand absolutely nothing. In fact, if there were any doubt in my mind whatsoever about the wisdom of extending votes to 16 and 17-year-olds, the memory of what the older generation did to our country when they were allowed to vote upon membership of the largest trading bloc in the history of the world should remove all reservations and conniptions immediately. Rob says, you'd have to be naive to vote for any of these clowns, and the 16-year-olds are incredibly naive. No fault of their own, like, he adds, suggesting that perhaps that text has come from the northeast. But I don't buy it. The problem is, you're thinking of a 16-year-old you know, aren't you? I haven't got one at home at the moment. I've got a 17-year-old at home doing a politics A-level, knows more about politics than many people much older than them, by dint of doing a politics A-level. You know, can talk to me about the Lib Lab Pact, which isn't necessarily going to influence a vote in 2027 or 2028 or whenever the next election is. But the idea that you can generalise about 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds seems to me to be absurd. And if you're thinking that it should be a barrier to casting a vote, you've forgotten about Brexit. Alan's in Lewisham. Alan, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's actually quite a wonderful idea to give younger people who still have hopes and aspirations and dreams a chance to at least think they're going to...
Oh, bloody hell, mate. Are you putting us on the sides that don't have them anymore? Those were the days, Alan, when we had hopes and aspirations. And do you remember dreams, Alan? Dreams were great, weren't they, eh?
I don't know, mate. You know what? I'm 40 years old, yeah, and it's just like... Everything for the last 20 years has just felt like one disaster after another. So it'd be nice if youngsters could actually turn up and be like, you know what, we're going to fix everything, we're going to make it all wonderful, and then I can retire knowing that
have a little bit of optimism. So get them while there's still optimism. Get them before reality and life has chiseled them down and turned them into cynical old misanthropes like you and me. Get them while they're young, when they've still got hope and dreams, instead of ending up with people like, I don't know, honest Bob Jenrick in Parliament. I like it. Any reservations? Don't forget what Alan Hansen said, Alan, in Lewisham. He said, you don't win anything with kids.
That's true. It's true. But no, I just think politics has become so stagnant, and we could just do with a little bit of a lift, maybe a bit more interest, because we had the lowest voter turnout in history.
I think it was very poor last time round. Yeah, I think you're right. I like it. Anything that injects a bit of a bit of pep, a bit of vim, a bit of elan into the political landscape. Thank you for that. I like that idea, actually. How are you going to engage the next generation in politics if they are excluded from it? And this could be a crucial election. And also, it occurs to me, I mean, is it actually going to work, though? So what you need now is someone listening to this who is 14, 15, 16. You need to get your parents' permission to ring in, I think, if you're under 16. Who is actually going to become more engaged in politics. And listen, let's not have an echo chamber. If you can see downsides, if you don't like the idea, and you can avoid the Brexit obstacle, because if your objections are based on young people can't be trusted to understand things, then I'm afraid Brexit completely destroys that argument. But if you've got a better one, then you're not just welcome, you're actively encouraged to contribute. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Sam's been in touch. I'm listening now, James. I was 16 when that Brexit vote came about. I and many of my peers would have voted to remain. There is a notion that young people know nothing about politics. I can assure you that many are invested and would have been the difference between us being in the EU right now and not being in it. You could be right. I mean, it was tight enough. Martin's in Newark. Martin, what would you like to say?
Oh, James, I'm excited about it. I think it's really good. I think that there's something very observable in the way that teenage brains change, where they are full of empathy.
Yes.
And although that can make them vulnerable, I don't think vulnerability should discount a young person from voting, because old people are vulnerable too, and we don't have discussions about people dropping off the other end of voting. Once you're a citizen, so if you're finishing with your education, you're entering into jobs, paying tax. Well, you've got to be part of the conversation. You have to be, because you're paying in. You're part of the gang at that point.
Yes, and the idea that the things that are going to affect people, and those people should not be allowed to cast a vote based on them, is absurd. I got distracted then when you were talking about vulnerability. I was trying to remember where, because the thing is, I watch so much stuff that it gets mixed up. So it might have been in a really highfalutin intellectual play that I've seen recently, but equally it might have been in The Equalizer starring Queen Latifah. But something I saw recently contained the correct information that our perception of risk is still developing when we're young. It's why, we do crazy things when we get the frontal cortex, or there's part of your brain that does risk assessment. Yeah. That is not, but that does,
It's like a massive firework display.
Yes.
For people up to the age of about 25. About 25 is when people's brains calm down typically.
That's right, yes.
Obviously, there are outliers either side. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting time. That's why they break away from families and go and find their own social groups. You've got to kind of look back into the old animal that we used to be.
Yeah.
And I think we just reached that phase of life where it's time for us to take responsibility for ourselves. And, of course, everyone's going to be on a spectrum with that.
Of responsibility and understanding, and that would apply to everybody of any age. And also, I suppose if we were feeling mischievous, if anyone did make a compelling case for arguing that 16-year-olds aren't sufficiently engaged to have a vote, you could simply say, well, they will be now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be the zinger in this conversation.
And I think the only argument you can put against it is an argument that, again, should be made for people of all ages, citizens of all ages. We need more explanation of how our democracy functions. That A-level politics, I did it years ago. It's a really good course.
Same.
And it really helped me understand how things are organised in this country. But I feel like everyone should have that.
Well, they do something called Modern Studies now, which contains quite a lot of stuff on democracy, inequality, international crises, global trade, healthcare, those kind of things. I think you're a former teacher, so you probably know more about what kids are taught these days than I do. But I think it's probably better than it was when I was an A-level student.
I think that's certainly true. I just think it could be yet better. Because the way that stuff works is it's at the discretions of schools to decide what their PSHE component of their curriculum is. So they can kind of bend it this way and that. And that's partly a sop to private schools who do not want to teach anything about the body, let's say, and how it changes when you're in your teenage years. So, you've got a lot of leeway as a school. And I really think that it would be wonderful if Bridget Phillipson came forward and said, every single person, no matter the age, here is a suite of learning materials for you to teach yourself how our democracy works. I think it could only be good.
And then the number of people that still think Brexit is a good idea would be in the low single figures, presumably, because knowledge is power. It is. That was me, not Martin. I don't want to put words into his mouth. I'd go further. I think if you voted for Brexit and you still think it was a good idea, you shouldn't be allowed to vote ever again until you publicly acknowledge how wrong you were and identify who it was that misled you so profoundly and unpleasantly. Seriously, that's what I do. Unfortunately, it's going to be like Woodstock. It's going to be like the opposite of Woodstock. You know how a few years after Woodstock, if everyone who said they'd been at Woodstock had actually been at Woodstock, then it would have been, it would have sunk under the weight of all the people that were there. There's no earthly way. It's a bit like Spike Island. I did not go to the Stone Roses gig at Spike Island, but it's possible that I claimed I did for much of my 20s. I don't remember doing that, but remembering what I was like in my 20s, it is perfectly possible I claimed to have been at Spike Island when I wasn't actually at Spike Island. It was an interesting period of my life. It's possible I was at Spike Island and have now completely forgotten, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't. And Brexit will be like that by the time these 16-year-olds who have been given the vote are my age. There won't be anybody around who admits to having voted for that nonsense 50 years ago. It is 11:29, and Dominic Ellis is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:32, and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Do you want a little insight into the sort of conversations that we have off air this morning? Eleanor, the producer, and I had an argument this morning about whether or not promoting a book is the same as self-promoting. So I think there's a crucial difference between promoting a book that you've written and being a self-promoting person. For example, if you turn down invitations to appear on media because you can't be bothered, you're not that self-promoting. But if you've got a book out and you use every opportunity you can to encourage people to read it because it's so good it will change their lives, let alone their understanding of the world in which they live, then it's a public service to promote your book. It's a very personal service to promote yourself. So fair play to Martin, the last caller, who's got his first book out today and resisted any urge to promote it on the programme uninvited. He's just texted me, so I shall tell you all about it. It's called Three Ravens Folk Tales. You may be familiar with his podcast called Three Ravens, and looking at 39 historic counties of England and stories from each one of them. That sounds absolutely brilliant, and congratulations to Martin and his co-author, another Eleanor, actually, for bringing that getting that out there, getting that published. Is that self-promoting or book promoting? Because Eleanor doesn't know the difference. It's 11:34. Ben's in Wigan on the votes for women. No, sorry, that's Mary Poppins. Votes for teenagers. What do you think, Ben?
Hello, James.
Hello, Ben.
Yeah, I was talking to your colleague earlier, and I remember back in 2010, I was 17 years of age.
Yes.
And I could tell you that the Liberal Democrats wanted to legalise weed, they wanted to make tuition fees free, and they wanted to change the voting system. And I really wanted to go and vote for those people. I could not tell you a single policy platform of any of the parties from last year's general election.
What happened to you?
I got old, James.
Life happened.
Yeah, you're working full time, you don't engage with it the same. And I genuinely knew more.
They're all going to stop the boats, mate. There you go. I've brought you up to speed. They're all going to stop. They don't tell you how or indeed why, but they're all going to stop the boats. Apart from that, I take your point. I'd go and one of them was going to build 40 hospitals, or perhaps they have. I don't know. But I know, we're both exaggerating slightly, but you're right. I hadn't thought of it that way round. When I was a sixth former, I got quite a weird job, obviously, but I was engaged in a way that I probably am not engaged as an adult.
Yeah.
And it is...
I think you have more time.
Well, also, we're quite naive. It may be that we have both arrived at a place, whether we realise it or not, where somewhere deep inside we're not sure how much difference it actually makes who's in charge.
No, and that's part of the reason I've changed my opinions on the voting system, for example. But at that age, I think you want to change things. You want to push the world forward and pay attention.
And who here can argue against the brilliance with which Nick Clegg delivered the abolition of tuition fees? Electoral reform, and we'll both be smoking a fat one after this in order to toast to the successful legalisation of weed. So you didn't even need to vote, did you? All your dreams came true anyway.
All of those policies are very much in our society now.
But still going. No, I like it. It's a really good point. And of course, it's anecdotal. So here's a 17-year-old who doesn't know what day it is. But neither of them are game changers. I would have thought, if you were looking for a generality, that a sixth form student is probably better informed than your average adult who doesn't listen to this programme. Peter's in Oxford. Peter, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. Yeah,
Hello.
I'm delighted by this announcement, but it doesn't go far enough, of course. The big missed opportunity is electoral reform as a whole. As you know yourself, the first-past-the-post system is invidious, unfair to both the parties.
We're not having a phone-in about electoral reform. This is what's about a tree.
But what they need to do, really, is to look at the whole electoral system, not just the voting age. I mean, I'm delighted that they have made some changes, or are proposing to make some changes in mayoral elections. But yeah, as far as the young are concerned, I agree entirely about about the referendum outcome speaking for itself, and many people who are then 16 and 17-year-olds who could have had the right to vote had this applied then, and who'll be profoundly affected or deprived of it. I couldn't agree more.
And the extension of the franchise through voter ID and automatic voter registration as well. It was a very ugly moment. I was reminded yesterday, Peter, when we were discussing the Afghan leak, and it took a call. I hadn't done it myself, which is odd because I used to do it every day for hours on end, interminably, some would say, that just how awful those people were in power in the last several administrations. Just being reminded, I mean, Grant Shapps almost inevitably has his fingerprints all over this Afghan story. Liz Truss condemning it while conveniently forgetting that she was Foreign Secretary at the time. Just awful, awful people who did lots of awful, awful things. So I'd forgotten about the time they tried to make it harder to vote for no reason other than the fact that they thought that younger people would be less likely to have the ID that they made necessary and also more likely not to vote for them. So they literally tried to gerrymander the electorate. Extending it to as many people as possible is almost beyond criticism, except by people who are obviously and openly biased and want to deny the vote to people that they don't think are going to vote for them.
James, can I come back to you on that?
Yes.
I'm very glad you mentioned the Election Act, and the least invidious part of that, to my mind, was the voter ID, although it was wrong. Of course, it was designed, as Rees-Mogg said himself, to favour the Tories. However, bear in mind also that they abolished the fair voting for mayoral elections, which hopefully will change back now.
Yes.
And also that they reduced the powers of the Election Commission, which has bin seriously undemocratic and seriously damaging to the electoral process in this country. The Electoral Commission now doesn't really have the same powers to interfere when parties behave badly, and that should definitely be changed back.
It was probably a moment when they appointed a Minister for Democracy, actually, and it is very much on Rashan Ara Ali's watch that this legislation is being introduced. It was also in the manifesto. So, I mean, it's quite weird to have this government introducing something that seems to be universally and uniformly popular. But if you're opposed to it, there are two obstacles you can't get past. If you're opposed to it on the grounds that you can't trust young people to vote, then Brexit, I'm afraid, completely blows your argument out of the water. In fact, Brexit skewed with age, didn't it? The older you were, the more likely you were to have fallen for all the lies of Farage and Johnson and Rees-Mogg and the rest of them. And the second point, of course, is that it was in the manifesto. So you can't be opposed to them introducing a manifesto pledge without being opposed to one of the more fundamental tenets of democracy, and it's fiscal proof as well. So you can argue for and against the idea that the economic situation they inherited made some manifesto promises impossible, or vice versa, but you can't argue against this because it's largely free. And it extends the franchise. The more people that vote, the healthier a democracy is, possibly. If you wonder whether Peter and I are remembering correctly on that Rees-Mogg story, this is what I mean about them being so awful so constantly that you forget specific examples of it. It was the locals. It was the local elections that saw people required to produce photo ID, such as a passport or a driving licence, back in 2023. And he said that this had made it harder for our own voters to take part. He essentially admitted that we found the people who didn't have ID were elderly. And they, by and large, voted Conservative. So we made it hard for our own voters, and we upset a system that worked perfectly well. And of course, the reason they did it, although I don't think Rees-Mogg coughed to this bit, was because they thought it would be more likely that young people didn't have the requisite photo ID, less likely to have driving licences, possibly less likely to have passports. It is 11:41. Mark's in Crawley. Mark, what would you like to say?
James, I would just like to say, first of all, I'm delighted about these changes, but the Labour Party should be careful for what they wish for.
Yes.
Because some historical context, when they reduced the voting age from 21 to 18 in 1969, they surprisingly lost the 1970 general election. They were really expecting to win it. And I believe that one of the factors was Harold Wilson's government in 1967 outlawed the offshore pirate radio stations, Radio Caroline, and
bringing radio
London
into the conversation.
Yes, yeah, and so basically, it was a bit like outlawing TikTok or probably Spotify today for young people. It was massively unpopular with young people.
Really, was it that big a deal? You'll forgive me not knowing this on age grounds. I should probably know it on radio grounds. But I've had Tony Blackburn on, full disclosure. That was a lovely interview, but paying proper homage. And I know a little bit about pirate radio, but I didn't know it was such an enormous phenomenon.
Oh my God! When the stations were outlawed and Radio Caroline was the last one to continue, it was 6 weeks before Radio 1 came on the air. It had an audience. Johnny Walker and Robbie Dale had an audience of 25 million estimated.
Shut the front door.
No, seriously. And, I mean, within weeks of Caroline starting, one of the reasons they couldn't stop it was because they had about 7 million listeners in the first few days. It was Richard Curtis, who made The Boat That Rocked, described the launch of pirate radio as, you know, the lack of music on the radio, because the BBC only had 1 hour at the time, a week or so, was the biggest gap in supply and demand ever. So, you know, the pirates really filled that demand for pop music on the radio, and it was massively popular with young people and, you know, older people as well.
And you think does history support your position? Is this, or is it entirely a homegrown view that this would have affect? Because if you're of a young person and Harold Wilson has shut down your radio station, you've been just handed the vote, you probably are going to go and use it to hit him over the head.
Yeah, I mean, Radio Caroline came back on the air especially for the election campaign,
urging people to vote.
Urging people to vote, well, for free radio. They didn't overtly say Conservative, but the Conservatives had paid lip service to introducing free radio, and they did introduce commercial radio eventually in a very sort of structured form.
And this is the first ever commercial radio station that you're on now?
Exactly.
Oh, beautiful symmetry this call has. This has gone all meta. What, are you a radio person yourself, Mark?
I think you could describe me as an anorak. Yeah, I'm a radio presenter on Caroline, and I lived and I grew up. I was under the voting age in 1970, but I was at a very young age. I remember listening to the pirate stations, and it rubbed badly with me that it was that they were made legal without a decent replacement being put on. Just a BBC replacement.
That's amazing.
But, I mean, they had campaign buses in all the marginals. They had pictures of Harold Wilson as Chairman Mao. And they had, on air, it was wallpapered. They had a version of Who Do You Think You're Kidding, Mr. Hitler, as Who Do You Think You're Kidding, Mr. Wilson. It was heavy propaganda they put out. And as you asked about the proof of this, although it might seem anecdotal, there have been inconclusive academic studies.
Yes.
But in those marginals, in the east of England, where the signal was strongest and they had the largest support base, they did have the largest swings. I mean, another factor as well was saying was a week before that, England was knocked out of the World Cup by West Germany, which probably had as much a factor as making people disgruntled.
Yeah, that sort of national mood. That was Alf Ramsey again, wasn't it, in 1970?
Exactly.
It was his second bite of the cherry, go from winning the whole thing to getting knocked out again by Germany. Do you still broadcast, Mark?
I do, voluntary. We're like a steam preservation society. We keep it going for the love of it, and we're still broadcasting. It's from the Rostrovenge radio ship in the Blackwater estuary.
Amazing. But, I don't get in trouble after the show for promoting the opposition, but that's remarkable. And there is still some. I mean, I think you deserve a Ray Liotta, don't you, on this one? I mean, your knowledge of radio is not only exceptional, but also so relevant to the conversation that we're having, and tying it into the votes for young people with that historical. Mate, have one of these.
I'm Ray Liotta, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC.
Thank you for that, James.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
No, thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
Well, can I ask go on.
Just one more, just to bring it up to date. I do think that it's likely again to not to backfire on Labour, even though I'm delighted that they're doing it. Because I think, teenagers tend to veer towards more radical. So I think it will benefit the Green Party. It could benefit Corbyn's new party, if that ever happens, and of course Reform as well.
Yes,
so,
it could do. The more exciting propositions are possibly more appealing to younger people, but we shall see. That was fascinating. Thank you, Mark. What a lovely conversation. What a lovely contribution. I feel illuminated. It's 11:46. People, speaking of illumination, it's Thursday, isn't it? So it's Mystery Hour at 12 noon. I'd forgotten about that as well. Normally, that's where you have to go to get a Ray, but every now and then someone gets onto the programme proper and delivers a contribution of such unique quality that only they could deliver, that we pulled a Ray Liotta out of the archive.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:49. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the relationship between this radio station and the decision to give votes to 16 and 17-year-olds has just been quite beautifully expounded by our caller Mark in Crawley. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thunk it? And did you know that it was so popular, Pirate Radio? 25. I suppose looking back, of course it was. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had to close it down, would they? And indeed, would Radio 1 have... I mean, a lot of people crossed over immediately from the Pirates to Radio 1 to the BBC, but would it have even been able to exercise such a grip upon the nation if the rivals had still been in place? But there we are. This was the very, very first commercial radio station, October 1973, as Mark knew, and I didn't, somewhat embarrassingly. 10 to 12 is the time. Back to the question of votes for 16 to 17-year-olds. What would he have to do now to have another Radio Caroline moment? If what would Starmer have to abolish in order to lose the support of all the teenagers in the world, all the teenagers in the country? I don't know. Pauline's in Mitcham. Pauline, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I actually... Hi, James. So
hello.
I agree with 16 and 17-year-olds voting, but I do feel that we can't wait for those lessons to begin in secondary schools. They need to actually begin in primary schools. I was talking to your lady before I came on, and I know when you say to teachers, oh, you've got to teach something else, they kind of panic. Yes. But I think there are creative ways of ensuring that politics is taught at primary level. So I was saying to her that reading is taught every day, normally, at least 4 days a week at primary school. And there are ways of introducing textbooks about politics for young children, in those reading lessons, so that they are actually learning.
I don't know. You know, when slightly weird people ring in to talk about children's health education, or they prefer to call it sex education, and you find yourself and they say, well, they need to stay innocent, we need to keep them innocent. I think I'm in danger of sounding like them now. I almost think that primary school should be a place that it's that little one period of their life where they don't have to think about politics.
Well, politics is all around them, James, isn't it?
No, that's love.
You know, I'm talking about 9 and 10-year-olds.
Yeah, I know it
just
is.
Learning about what political systems are out there.
Well, they want to do a jigsaw, don't they?
9 and 10-year-olds, maybe.
They do some maths, they do a little bit of this, and they don't want them to be doing politics, is it? But then, no, you're right. I know you're right on one level, because it would be a more... that first caller who just sounded so broken by life and describing how young people have still got hopes and dreams. The sooner you start teaching them about politics, the quicker they'll be wizened old misanthropes like us.
Oh, no, I think there are ways. There are ways, James. I think so. Children... I said to the lady I spoke with. Maybe politics is probably a heavy word for them.
Yes, okay. No, you're right. Of course, if you get rid of the word politics and replace it with, society, or we're going to give them lessons about getting on. But of course, they do politics, don't they?
They do. Yeah. Can I just share something with you?
No.
So a few years ago, I had a class of year 6. They were actually.
Oh yes.
And we talked about. I shared with them the "I Have a Dream" Martin Luther speech.
Oh yes.
And invited them to write their own "I Have a Dream" speech.
Oh wow.
And James, what came out? They talked about climate change. They talked about inequality in the pay gap between men and women. They talked about racism, knife crime. So children are not blind. They are seeing what's happening out there, and they just need, I think they need to be nurtured in such a way so it doesn't scare them. But I mean, part of that story suggests that things are okay as they are. If they're arriving at these conclusions and without any change to the curriculum, then why do we need a change to the curriculum? If you see what I mean. Yes, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not suggesting we change the curriculum.
I'm more teachers like you is what we need, Pauline. I think that would.
I've retired.
I mean, we'll get you back and we'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Thank you, Pauline. 11:54 is the time. Stuart's been in touch with some breaking news. My mum likes jigsaws and she voted for Brexit. He tells us. Thanks, Stuart. David's in Prestwich. David, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. I think possibly if we're worried about people of that age, young people, 16 or whatever, having the vote. We may be guilty of underestimating them.
I think you're right.
I was with my boys. I've got 3 sons. There's quite a large gap. There's like 10 years between my oldest and my middle son. But my 2 youngest, he's 20 now and 16.
Right, there you go.
He had his first vote last year. So we're like children together. We do my wife's heading. We communicate via memes.
Yes.
We've got a really surreal sense of humour. We're like nice. We're kids, all 3 of us. But then I'm thinking, right, okay. So they're like the TikTok generation. I scroll TikTok and Instagram and whatever for hours, but we all do. But when it came to voting, I thought, right, I'll have a chat with him.
Yeah.
And he was so switched on at 19, and I was like, wow, I was blown away. And I said, how do you know so much? And he said, well, it's my first time voting. He said, I figured I'd better know what was going on. And it surprised me because I thought, we smash our Xbox, we smash our social media, but he'd done the work, he put the work in because he wanted to make that vote count. And I think we're very different, children and young people these days, because when I was young, when me and my best mate, when we were like 16 or whatever, any time we had or any money we had, we used our equation, which was like we could buy the most alcohol for the cheapest price that was the strongest, and we got drunk.
Thunderbird.
Thunderbird Red.
Yeah,
my son came home the other day, the 16-year-old. He'd been out with his mates. He came back and he had some food and he'd brought some sushi back with him that had got a yellow ticket on it because it was cheaper, and he liked sushi. And I'm like, we're not the same people. Our youth are so switched on. Do you know what I mean?
They're not as carefree as we were. They're more conscious of pressures and problems in the future than perhaps we were, because they're right to be. And the more informed they are, then the more politically engaged they're likely to be. Where did he go for the information? Do you know? Where was he? Where did he?
I didn't ask. I mean, I pointed him in. I mean, I'm slightly biased, I would imagine. Sure. I pointed him in towards you. A couple of podcasts. Yeah. I'm a firm troll listener, but he just basically said, I don't need to listen to those, he said, because they're preaching to the converted, basically.
Yeah, good point.
So he'd already made his mind up. I mean, the internet, you look at it and you go, oh, well, it's all TikTok. But yeah, it's a great source of information.
It can be. My daughter educates me on this and the clips that come round. I mean, Labour need to up their game probably in that field, but this would give them every single reason to do so, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just out of interest, because you've given us quite a lot of biographical information, and what's your algorithm tuned to? What pops up most on your phone? I'm getting a lot of table tennis. Do you know what I'm getting, David? I'm getting table tennis content and American soldier reunions.
Mine would be little kids doing cute things because they make me laugh and cheer me up, but also Rhea Ripley, the wrestler.
Oh, really?
It would pop up most on mine, I would imagine. So, the thing as well about the youth as well, they're much more inclusive than we were at that generation. I'll go out with any of my boys, and they've got there's a mix of males, females. Like my middle son, well, both my older sons have got trans friends. Yeah. They don't care. The friends are the friends. You know,
I think that's so interesting.
We need that when we're making policies going forward, because we're so out of date now, and so
that is a really good point. Particularly on some of those diversity issues for young people, they're not issues. Their lives. That's just how we are. That's my friendship group we're talking about. They're not some weird alien experience. It's just my friendship group. They're my mates.
I've never had one of my boys come back and say, "Oh yeah, my trans mate so and so," or whatever. They just say, "My mate." Do you know what I mean? And that's how it should be. I would genuinely say that my boys are much better people at their age than I was, certainly. I can say that without a shadow of a doubt.
And you're the only one that can say it. It'd be rude for anyone else to do so. So I love that. Thank you. Speaking of the funny children, cute children doing funny things, there's one that must be up there with them. Have you seen it? And it's a little girl called Sophia who's pinched her mum's phone. And she's actually looking into the phone at the time, and you hear her mum's voice in the background go, "Sophia, have you seen my phone?" And she goes, "No." And then her mum bites at the giggle. If that giggle doesn't warm the cockles of your heart, then I think you need medical intervention. I really do. But I know it's soppy. But the soldier reunion stuff. I think that this morning I came into work and my feed was full of it. Anyway, I digress somewhat violently, actually. Let's get the show back on the road. It's time for Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to yada, 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 blah, blah, blah.
James O'Brien on LBC.
3 minutes after 12 is the time. 0345 6060 973 is the number, and Mystery Hour is the name of the game. Your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction. I wasn't phoning it in before when I went yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. I was just conscious of the crescendo in the background being reached. And I realised I didn't have enough time left before we hit the actual news for me to provide and deliver the usual spiel, which is, of course, this. Your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. I didn't have time to say that, so I said yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Also, you probably knew what the spiel would do. Anyway, if you deliver my favourite contribution of the week, then you will win a Mystery Hour board game. Terms and conditions available at lbc.co.uk. More details about the Mystery Hour board game available at mysteryhour.co.uk. Oh, and there are some guarantees as well. Can you remember what they are? Yes, you can. Yes, we can. The first guarantee is that you will know more by 1 o'clock today than you do now. Now, it may not be information that you thank me for, or indeed whoever provides it for. It may not even be information that you can remember by 1:10, but it will be an increase in the sum total of your knowledge, and it will be affected between now and 1 o'clock. That is guaranteed. You will also laugh out loud, at least once. I don't know why I started getting the fear about this. It's not as if you can sue me or complain. You send me a text saying, I didn't laugh out loud once. I didn't reach a crescendo, writes Alex. It's the journey, not the arrival. I think I said that. I could hear the crescendo in the background, building. Anyway, there could be a question on Mystery Hour. But what I won't do is, I won't bottle it. I will stick with the pledge that you will laugh out loud at least once between now and 1 o'clock. If you don't, talk to Keith. It's nothing to do with me, all right? He will provide you with full refunds on that occasion. 5 minutes after the time, on the unlikely event of you not laughing out loud between now and 1 o'clock. I think that's it, really. I should tell you what it is. I mean, imagine that. You didn't even know what it was. People ring in with a question, right? A who, a why, a what, a where, a when, a whence, even the occasional wherefore, or whither. Any other interrogative pronouns that anyone can think of? Why, where, who, what, why, where, when. That's the sort of rules of journalism. Who, what, why, where, when. What happened, what resulted. So you can't do those. Who, what, why, where, when. Whence, whither, wherefore. Wherefore's the same as what? No, why. Wherefore's the same as why. Isn't it? Romeo, Romeo, why are thou, wherefore art thou Romeo? Why are you Romeo? Anyway, that's how it works. 03456060973 is the number that you need. I think that's it. Anthony's in Blackpool to kick things off. Question or answer, Anthony?
It's a topical question, James.
I say, carry on.
When did the Tour de France begin to evolve from being a contest between individuals to a team event.
Oh, I mean, it's still a contest between... you still have an individual winner, but they're all in teams, aren't they, now?
Precisely, with huge support, extensive support of mechanics, medics, etc., etc. I imagine in the very earliest days, it was a one-man band.
And
tyre burst.
You'd have your little puncture repair kit. You'd have to pull over on the side of the roo and fix your... I like that. That's a nice question, actually.
Thank you.
How long's it been going? Do you know?
The Tour de France?
Yeah.
All my thoughts about the question. Yeah, I think it started about 1902.
So
it was to publicise Le Monde, a newspaper. They sponsored it.
And you didn't... I had a question that I wanted to ask you, and it's just slipped out of the back of my brain. What was it? The Tour de France teams, individuals, when did they do it? When did they change to... No, it's gone. That's terrible. I can't do this job if I can't hold these thoughts in my head at the same time. Did you know that it is moving to pay-per-view?
Yes, of course.
I heard it I only heard it on the radio yesterday.
I mean, the coverage that they've had, on free-to-air has been... It's been...
On Channel 4 and latterly on ITV. It's been absolutely brilliant, hasn't it?
ITV4, yeah.
Yeah, but no more. 8 minutes after 12, I like that. When did it move to... So there is a team prize, isn't there, as well as an individual prize?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, I thought so. That's
the
question,
James, I think the winner donates his... 100,000 or so to the team.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, well, here we go. We'll find out. When did it cease to be? It'd be more exciting if it was individuals. You get a puncture, it's all over. Or you have to actually change your tyre by the side of the road. Thank you, Anthony. Jay's in Fort Worth in Texas. Jay, question or answer?
It's a question, please, James.
Carry on, Jay.
From earlier in the week, you were talking about conspiracy theories.
I was.
I would like to know which is the earliest conspiracy theory known. They all blew up in the 60s with JFK, etc., etc. Yeah. Are there any ancient ones? Which was the first conspiracy theory?
That is such a good question. Let's have a think.
Well, I know one. I grew up in the Cotswolds.
Did you?
And I knew about the story about the Bisley Boy, which was supposed to be the imposter for Elizabeth I died.
Oh, and then you've got Perkin Warbeck, and there was another one, wasn't there? Claiming to be Bonnie Prince Charlie or something, or to be the heirs to the throne. Oh, what about the princes in the tower? No, he did kill them, though. That wasn't a conspiracy theory, was it?
No.
Biblical, something biblical? Like that, Noah? There was no flood. I mean, there was no flood. I'm trying to think. Guy Fawkes, that wasn't a conspiracy theory. He tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament, so that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a really nice... How'd you end up in Fort Worth? You're a long way from the Cotswolds now. Toto.
Airplane.
Yeah, but very funny. Very well played. Is it work that took you there?
It is, yes. We've been over there for 15 years now.
Well, you haven't picked up the accent, have you?
No.
Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, there's got to be some earlier than that, no?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, I suppose some of the anti-Semitic stuff would be very historical, like blood libel and stuff like that would count as conspiracy theory.
Probably not go there.
Well, I mean, if it counts as a conspiracy theory, then we probably should. But I know what you mean. We're looking for something a little lighter, perhaps, on that front. But that's the problem with conspiracy theories, is that they lurch pretty quickly into the heavy, into the deeply sinister, as we discovered yesterday with that wonderful young man who blames his mother for the death of his own twin sister. If you missed that, by the way, it's well worth listening back to. Thank you, Jay. Christopher's in Munich. This is a very international mystery hour. Question or answer, Christopher?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
I'd like to know why some countries are referred to as the motherland, while some countries are called the fatherland.
Which countries are the motherland?
Russia's the typical one, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
The one I think of. And Germany's the typical fatherland, isn't it?
Well, you tell me. You're in Munich.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is.
I do too. Yeah, I quite like that. Is it just going to be...
I thought it was something... I've thought for a while that it's something to do with the monarchy, whether there's a king or queen in charge at the time, but I don't I'm not sure if that adds up.
I don't think that would work, really. I can only think of a couple of female czars, and they're mostly male, weren't they? Would be the gender in the language, like the le and the la of it. So if the country is feminine, what's France? Is France so it's Vive la France, isn't it? Or Vive la France. So France becomes feminine in French. Therefore, if it had a motherland, fatherland nomenclature, it would lean towards the motherland.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure what France is.
What's Germany?
Fatherland.
But what is Deutschland? Does Deutschland have a gender?
Das Land is neutral. That doesn't really help us.
Well, there goes that theory then. It was nice while it lasted, Christopher. Thank you. Why are some countries fatherlands and other countries motherlands? I like that. 0345 6060973 is the number that you need. I think The Princess in the Tower, this is going to be fun. What was the first conspiracy theory? You're going to struggle. It's going to go back to, I would have thought, early quasi-biblical stuff, but the motherland, fatherland question, and when did the Tour de France cease to be an individual event and become instead very team-based? A couple of phone lines free, 0345 6060973, if you can answer any of the three questions on the board, or indeed if you have a question of your own that you would like somebody else to have a swing at. Jamie is in Bognor Regis. Jamie, question or answer?
Hello, I have another question, please.
Carry on, Jamie.
So I run a food business out of a pub kitchen, and one of the big things we've becoming known for is we use our own burger buns. So I go through a lot of eggs, and I don't know when I learned this, but if you drop a piece of eggshell into a bowl, you can try as you might with your hands, with any utensils, nothing gets that piece of eggshell out.
It's very tricky. It's not impossible, but it is tricky.
Apart from the half eggshell itself, where the little piece of egg will literally jump into the shell.
Jump into it?
Why is it? Why is that?
Jump into it?
99% success rate here.
Shut up.
I'm telling you.
What, you actually watch it jump?
The half eggshell dipped in attracts the little shard of shell into it.
Oh, so it will float into it?
Float into it.
No, I was going to say, you haven't got bits of eggshell jumping around the bar in Bognor Regis. Is that right? So you think that there is an actual something going on?
There's definitely something going on. I've gone through a lot of eggs.
No, I mean, clearly, I believe it. I like that. So it's a burger speciality, is it, Jamie?
It is indeed, yeah. Burgers and wings.
Well done, burgers and wings. Out of the back of a pub in Bognor. What's the pub called?
The pub is the William Hardwick, and we are Burger Wings, BGRWNG.
Good for you, man. No, seriously, good luck. And what, apart from making your own buns, what else is your big secret?
The wing coating, 100%.
It's all about the wing coating. I've got into chicken wings quite late in life. I sort of thought it was a waste of time previously because the amount of meat you get seemed to me to be a bit of a poor return on the amount of effort that it takes to eat.
We've got pterodactyl wings, don't worry.
They're massive ones.
The sunny south coast.
The massive ones. I like Bognor. What was I going to say? Do you provide gloves?
We do have gloves on site.
Do you really?
We do.
Because I walked past a restaurant yesterday and there were two people sitting outside covered in... I mean, they looked like they were going into sort of a hazmat type scenario. They're wearing a full-on plastic apron and one of them was pulling on plastic gloves. And I actually I loitered a bit to see what they were eating, and it was a big pile of chicken wings.
There we go.
I hadn't seen that before. I love it. I could get yourself down to Bognor if you want some quality burger and wings. Jamie, thank you. And we'll get an answer to the egg question with a bit of luck as well. And I did that without any puns. I exhausted my pun reservoir yesterday when we were talking about trees. But normally any question based on eggs would get a very, very, very pun-heavy treatment. But not today. Maybe I'm finally growing up.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:16. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Mystery Hour continues. Conspiracy theories, eggs, motherlands, fatherlands, and the Tour de France. It's all going on today. Ernie's in Watford. Ernie, question or answer?
Hello, James.
Hello,
it's a question.
Carry on.
The question is, why is Hull in the East Riding called the land of green ginger?
Well, it's a good question, actually. You're a long way from Hull. Why are you so interested in this?
Well, it's always puzzled me. I have been to Hull many, many times and had some lovely times there. It is a beautiful place.
It is.
Really, it's called Kingston upon Hull, obviously.
Correct.
And I've spent many, many happy times there. So, yeah, I mean, when I've heard in the past, I am puzzled that, you know...
The land of green ginger.
Yeah, it's called the land of green ginger. I am puzzled why.
There is a street. My dad was on the whole Daily Mail back in the day. Before,
Was he really?
Yeah, before I was born. It was one of the papers he was on as he sort of made his way up through the regionals before arriving on a national. There is a street in Hull called, I think, the land of green ginger. But that and there's a book as well. But that would it not just be so when I go down, you know, around Butler's Wharf, down by Tower Bridge. You know, you've got.
I am familiar. You are talking about London now.
I am now, yeah. But you've got like Cinnamon Wharf, and you've got, you know, a lot of spice bits. So maybe it was just where they kept the ginger.
Yeah, obviously, yes, yeah. I'm not that familiar with that part. I mean, my family obviously come from West London, they come from Chiswick.
Gosh. There we go. God's own country. Well, no, Chiswick's now my second favourite West London locale after Brentford. So you were posh.
They lived in, do you know St Albans Avenue?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. It's a small world, isn't it?
Yeah.
How'd you end up in Watford?
Yeah, I mean, I always said that if anywhere I would want, you know, if somebody said to me, look, you've got to go and live in London instead of Hertfordshire.
Yes.
Do you know where I would choose?
Brentford.
Strand on the Green, right in front of Kew Bridge.
No, yeah, that is crazy beautiful down there, isn't it? It really is.
It's absolutely glorious.
It's like stepping back in time as well sometimes. A lot of famous people have lived there as well, you know. Donald Pleasance lived there for a while.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure that the property prices probably will be well out of my range.
Well, you and me both, Ernie. But hey, we live in hope. Let's get an answer to the land of green ginger question. It is 12:18. Have we done the break, Keith? We have done the break, haven't we? Apparently, I said I'd exhausted my pun reservoir when I said I wasn't going to do any puns about eggs. So I did one even without noticing that I was doing one. Oh, what a time to be alive. Rachel's in Coventry. Rachel, question or answer?
Hi, question, please.
Carry on, Rachel.
I want to know how does breast milk, I suppose, well, milk inside a human or an animal in that sense, actually, how does it not turn inside the body when the inside of a body is much higher temperature than outside the body? But if we were to leave it out for a certain amount of hours at room temperature, that would turn.
Because there's no oxygen.
So is it the oxygen that...
It can't oxidise.
But if we put it straight into a bottle and...
Yeah, but if it's a hermetically sealed watertight bottle, it's going to last a lot longer than it would if it was just out in a bowl, isn't it?
But what's a lot longer? Is that like how... I just don't understand how it doesn't turn... Is it just oxygen?
I don't know.
It's a bit nasty. Yeah, I know.
It's a bit... So really, you're asking why breast milk doesn't curdle in breasts?
Exactly. That is... I've wondered this since I was about 15.
So you'd get breast cheese then, wouldn't you?
Oh, no.
Well, you started it. Nobody wants that. My first band was called Breast. No, stop it. But
I've just always found it really fascinating how that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure I do. Even now that you've introduced me to this mystery, I'm not sure I'd say that I've always found it really fascinating. But some people listening will hopefully know the answer. And some people will actually be vomiting. So all human life is it. Thank you, Rachel. It's going to be some. I don't know what it is there, but I do apologise for introducing that phrase to the to the collective vocabulary of the show. I probably shouldn't have done. And there was me boasting just 10 minutes ago about finally achieving a level of maturity. Kevin's in Stirling. Kevin, question or answer?
It's a question, please.
Carry on.
My family and I were just back from a holiday over in Turkey, and we noticed that it was great. And we noticed that a lot of the local people, they all have, mostly have very, very dark hair.
Yes, they do.
Now, my family and I we're not alabaster, but we're paler in complexion, and I have.
You wear your Scottishness on your sleeves, Kevin.
I do, and on my and in my hair as well.
Yes, indeed.
And I was wondering say with climate change, if the climate, particularly in Scotland, so specifically Scotland, if it continues to get hotter, say, and in decades, hundreds of years, it becomes more like Turkey, how many generations of, say, my family would it take to confer an adaptation to the climate, to start to get darker hair, to start to adapt to the climate like that?
don't know if that. I mean, you're talking. I mean, so you'd need to. It would have. So you'd need a genetic mutation.
Yeah.
So one of your. What's the opposite of ancestor? What is it? One of the offspring's offspring. Or anyway, descendants. One of your descendants would be a genetic mutation. So for some reason, they'd be very dark, both of hair and skin, and we'd have to be living in a society where that improved their chances of reproduction, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So they'd have to be more sexually successful than your ginger descendants. There's a ginger theme to Mystery Hour this week. We've got the land of green ginger in Kingston upon Hull, and now we've got the evolutionary removal of gingers from the food chain.
Heaven forbid.
God forbid. And I don't know that we would ever... I mean, you can see why that would have happened in the distant past, but I don't know that it would... I mean, would it happen now that it would actually bestow a reproductive advantage, being darker?
Well, it's worked. I mean, that's what's happened in those climates.
Yeah, I know, but this was when we didn't have, air conditioning and roofs, and I mean, you're going back thousands and thousands and thousands of years when being able to survive outside would have been a much more visceral experience, wouldn't it? I'll put it on the list, but I wouldn't hold out much hope of it happening in your own immediate future. I don't think your great-grandchild is going to come out looking like Carlos Alcaraz.
I suppose the upside is that that long live the gingers, I guess.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's more likely to happen through like non-evolutionary reasons, isn't it? It's more likely to happen through marrying someone darker or having children. You don't have to be married. That sounded very 1950s. Having children with someone darker. But okay, I like the question though. How long would it take for an evolutionary change to a population's colouring to kick in? I'd be amazed if anyone can answer it, but you never know. 0345 6060973 is the number you need. Michaela is in Norwich. Michaela, question or answer?
It's a question.
Carry on, Michaela.
Hello. Why don't maggots drown?
That sounds like the first line of a joke.
No,
I don't know. I give up. Why don't maggots drown?
Well, we don't know. In this hot weather, obviously there's lots of maggots around in bins. So we're trying to get rid of them. Well, there has been. And they just drown. They don't drown. They reproduce. You go back to the bin and there's millions more of them.
But how did you try to drown them?
With a kettle.
You poured a kettle into your bin?
Well, yeah, around the outside of the bin.
But they wouldn't drown unless you filled it up to the top.
No, even if you fill it up, they still come back.
Well,
and that's true.
Well, I don't not believe you. I'm just not sure that you've tried hard enough to drown them.
I did.
How? Well, you didn't. You just emptied one kettle into a bin.
Oh, we didn't.
That's pathetic.
We had to bury some in the end. They don't
alive?
Drown.
You buried them alive. Salt is what you want, I think, isn't it? Or is that slugs?
Yeah, but why don't they drown though? Why do they just reproduce?
But it's not like one or the other. It's not like they don't drown. They reproduce instead. They just don't. They don't drown because you're not. If you got a pint pot and dropped a maggot into it, the maggot would drown.
Yeah, one maggot because yeah.
Yeah, well, all right, five maggots then. But I don't think they're drown-proof. They respirate. They must drown. I'm going to put the question on the board, but I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's a real question.
I don't think it is at all. Why don't maggots drown? No, why don't maggots drown? We've just accepted that they do drown. If you drop one maggot into a pint of water, it would drown.
Yeah, but people use them for fishing. They don't drown.
Oh, she's done me. That's twice today. I've been absolutely kippered. They don't, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you've just got me completely there. They drown eventually, don't they? They drown eventually. You need to be a bit more careful of your bin as well. Right? So you shouldn't...
it's not just, it's just...
if you keep the lid on, the flies can't get in to lay their eggs, and then the eggs don't hatch anywhere. They won't get anywhere, not with a decent bin. All right, you're on. Why don't maggots drown? 0345 60973. And it is lunchtime, but I can't control what questions come on during Mystery Hour. That's only the second most disgusting thing that you've heard in the first half an hour of the feature this week. 0345 600973. Why don't maggots drown? How long would it take for gingers to be removed from the population by evolutionary advantage? Why is Hull known as the land of green ginger? Are eggs magnetic? What determines whether a country is a motherland or a fatherland? What was the first conspiracy theory? And when did the Tour de France become a team event rather than just a battle of individuals? Suzanne is in Westcliff-on-Sea. Suzanne, question or answer?
Hi, James. It's
Hello.
an answer.
Carry on.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, yeah, the egg. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's loud and clear.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I think you've got
so
a delay. Suzanne, have you left your radio on in the background?
No, nothing's on.
All right, carry on.
I'm in another room as well.
Oh, okay.
So when you, because egg is basically, it's made of the calcium. So they're two like-minded substances, the two bits of eggs in the calcium. So one calcium substance attracts another one. So when you're actually, it does actually act like a magnet because the calcium, other than not the yolk bit because that's fat.
Sure, but
right?
the egg,
but the calcium
the shell,
in
the shell.
Yeah, so the white. So you're looking for it gets lost as you're baking in the.
Yeah, a little shard in the egg white.
Yeah.
And you put another shell near it, and it will move towards it.
Yeah, because it's the calcium. They're two like-minded substances. They get very attracted.
Not like-minded substances. It's eggshell. It hasn't got a mind.
It does. It's the calcium bit that's got the mind. It's in the calcium. The calcium attracts them together. So it is. I tell the kids that when I'm cooking with them.
Okay. Qualifications?
When I'm teaching them. Children's cookery teacher.
You are a children's cookery teacher. I don't know that qualifies you to comment on the chemical constitution of calcium, does it? I'm going to test this later.
You learn about the chemicals.
Yeah, all right. So calcium attracts calcium, but only when it's in the albumin, in the white. Magnetic eggs, in a way.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't get it in the yolk.
No. Have a round of applause on me.
Thank you.
Have you ever cooked pasta alla zozzona?
Yes. When we went to Italy, we did a cookery course.
And they did that? They did zozzona?
Yeah, something very similar.
Because that's what I'm going to cook tonight, and I'm going to test it on the eggs. I've wanted to cook it for ages. I went out, I bought the proper guanciale and a proper Italian sausage. It's like a cross between a matricana and carbonara. I can't believe I've never heard of it before.
Oh, bellissimo.
It certainly is. But my name's James. Thank you, Suzanne. It's 12:30. Amelia Cox has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:32 is the time you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I must say, right, Spike, these are some of the oddest questions Mystery Hour has had for a while. Well, I think that the milk and the maggots, mate, that it all went a bit weird then, but the rest of them are absolutely standard. They're top quality. The first three, I thought, were the best opening hat-trick of questions we've had in a long time. Let me run through what they are before you can start answering them and even adding questions of your own. So when did the Tour de France become a team event as opposed to just individual riders doing battle? Any idea what the very first conspiracy theory? It'd be hard to prove, but I'll take suggestions. What determines whether a country is a motherland or a fatherland? We've done the eggs. Well played. Why is Kingston upon Hull known as the land of green ginger? Why does milk inside a mammal not curdle? How long would it take for an evolutionary advantage to turn families that are currently ginger into dark-haired people? And why don't maggots drown? 0345 6060 Suki's in Hull. Suki, question or answer?
I've got an answer, James.
Carry on, Suki.
Land of green ginger.
I thought it might be that one, what with you being in Hull. Well, it's not guaranteed, but why? Why is it known as the land of green ginger?
It's an actual street in Hull at the end of another street called Whitefrigate, and it's believed to be back to the medieval times of trading when spices used to come through the port.
Yes.
And urban legend has it that that's why it's called the land of green ginger, because of the spices that used to come through to the port.
And the name of the road sort of just expands to become the name of the town or the nickname of the whole town. city.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that the whole town, well, the whole city, sorry, was known as the land of green ginger, but it's a definite street in Hull.
And as far as we know, it will be the same reason why Cinnamon Wharf in London is called Cinnamon Wharf, because it was...
I'd imagine so, yeah. But the land of green ginger also has what is known as the world's smallest window, which is a tiny little slit near the George Hotel, and it's meant to be the world's smallest window.
There's a lot going on in Hull.
You should pay a visit.
I should do, actually. I'd go pay a bit of homage to my late father's memory as well. Mum and Dad lived in Hull for a while when Dad was on the paper.
You know, it's known as Hollywood as well for all the filming that happens.
No, it isn't.
It is.
No, it isn't. Only to people in Hull. No one else calls it Hollywood. If I go to Los Angeles, if I go to Los Angeles and say, "Where are you going to make your next movie, here or Hollywood?" They'd think I had a weird accent. They wouldn't sort of. Well, anyway, I'm joking. I don't want to get into trouble with the good burgers of Hull.
No. That's fine, but there was a sign that said Hollywood instead of Hollywood.
Welcome to Hollywood. Qualifications?
Yeah. I live in Hull.
That'll do nicely. Round of applause for Suki, please. I like that one. Suki and Ernie. 12:35 is the time. Jenny's in Wivenhoe. Jenny, question or answer?
I've got an answer for you, James.
Carry on, Jenny.
So it's an answer to the breast milk question. I promise it's nowhere near as icky as you think it's going to be.
Good stuff. Don't mention cheese.
Yeah, it's definitely not cheesy.
Carry on.
So roughly, the milk's made on demand. So I think it's a bit of a myth where people think that the milk's made and then just stored in the boob.
Yeah.
But it's actually quite a precision process where it's made on demand. And so that's why in early days, if you're breastfeeding, regular feeding helps to build up your milk production, milk supply, get everything knowing what it's doing.
So it's not going to hang around inside the mammal for long enough for this to become relevant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also because it's packed with white blood cells, so there's like more and more research going on. But if you put a drop of breast milk onto a slide under a microscope, an hour later it's even cleaner because all the white blood cells have been chomping away on anything and everything.
Well, you live and learn. Qualifications?
So I'm an IBCLC, which is a lactation consultant.
So you help mums breastfeed?
Yeah, I support families with breastfeeding, bottle feeding, chest feeding, introducing solids, stopping feeding, everything and anything.
Gosh. That's lovely.
Thank you.
Have a round of applause on me.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. That's a full and frank and comprehensive answer to a frankly quite strange question. But quite often the questions that seem strange don't turn out to be strange when you actually get the answer. So let me just jot down Jenny's name next to Rachel's, who I hope Rachel is satisfied with that answer. It was a good one. 12:37 is the time. Stuart's in Hackney. Stuart, question or answer?
It's a question, James. Hi.
Hello.
What it is, you wake up in the mornings, and you see a spider in the bathtub.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a double-edged question, really. A, how do they get into the bath?
They come out the pipe.
Okay, and how do they get out?
They don't. They go back down the pipe.
But they don't, because when you run the tap to force them down there, they evade it.
Yeah, of course they do. They don't want to drown. They're not maggots. They do. It comes up the pipe, but it's because it can get around the U-bend and then it get back out that way as well, but not when the water is running because they'll get washed away.
But they don't want to go down the plug hole. I've tried so many times.
Yeah, but you have to leave them and then come back and it will have gone. Leave your phone there filming, I promise you. There's nowhere else they can go. It's Occam's razor.
Yeah, but you've got to look at it. Also, in the U-bend, there's water. So
yeah, but not enough. Only there's just enough for them to squeeze their way around the side.
No. The U-bend is full of water. There's not like an air pocket for them to evade the water in the U-bend.
No, he's right, actually. Let me think. Where do they go?
Don't be using Google, please.
I'm not. You're not allowed to use Google.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're typing away.
I'm always typing away, but not necessarily for the reason that you think I am. And it doesn't sound like I'm typing away. I'm on YouTube. I've got my flipping face in my chin like I always do. I'm picking my beard. Yeah, all right then. Let's do it.
Oh, okay. We're on, yeah?
Sounds like you're typing away now.
Rollering, so yeah.
What are you rollering?
Some paint on a door.
Oh, really? What colour?
It's a kind of burnt red, orangey kind of colour.
Umber.
You could describe it as that, I suppose.
No, I just did.
Absolutely.
It's a bit disrespectful, that, Stuart.
Not at all.
It's a bit disrespectful, this.
I'm not.
You're not. I mean, you're not. I mean, if you were listening to me and rolling a door with paint, that would be acceptable. But when you're actually live on national radio and you think, I'll just roll a painted door while I'm talking.
Time is money, isn't it?
I'll just roll a painted door while I'm talking to him. I think that's a bit disrespectful. I expect your undivided attention for at least the duration of the phone call.
I'm a modern man. I can multitask.
How do spiders get in and out of a bath? 0345 60 carefully. 0345 60 973 is the number you need. Spiders and maggots. It's all going on today. Patrick's in Chamonix, continuing the slightly above average international flavour of today's programme. Question or answer, Patrick?
It's a question.
Carry on.
I've got a sort of a fix-it-all neighbour, sort of an old-school chap, and I'm looking to find some water in the garden. Now, he's got these copper rods that he thinks you can walk around the garden and pinpoint the water source.
Dowsing.
Now, yeah, there must be some form of truth to this, otherwise I thought it wouldn't be as well known, but how can that work?
I think we had calls years ago from someone who even worked for the water board who recognised the usefulness of dowsing rods.
Right, okay. It's just how's it physically possible?
I don't know that we know. I think it might be one of the great mysteries of our time.
Well, there we go. That should make it onto the game.
So the science of dowsing is what we're talking about. Why it works?
Yeah,
have you used it? Has your neighbour done it?
No. No, he's a bit annoying, so I don't want to sort of get him over for 3 hours if I don't have to.
It's tricky, that, isn't it? I think I meant ochre, not umber, ochre. OCHRE. So some people think it's garbage. Elise has already been in touch to say that it is garbage.
Okay.
But, I mean, that's the test, isn't it? Really, you should have waited until he'd done it, and then you could ring in and say to Elise, oh, yeah, so how come he just found a spring in my garden then, clever clogs?
Oh, yeah, that would have been good. Yeah.
But he hasn't found a spring in your garden yet, and so we're back in the realms of speculation, really.
Yes.
So what's going on with the dowsing? Divining.
Yeah.
Divining. It's divining. Why did I do dowsing, divining? Is that the same thing? Divining rods. When I was getting sort of weird treatments for fertility issues, one of the fellas that we ended up employing, he tried to do it to me. I stood there. I think I've told this. I stood there in my lucky pants, my Homer Simpson pants, while he sort of waved dowsing rods around behind me. Good Lord, we were desperate.
Wow.
I didn't do anything, just for the record. So don't let your neighbour get into. It's coming up to 12:42. Thank you, Patrick. Does it? What's going on with the dowsing? 0345 6060 973, or even the divining. Steve's in Benfleet. Steve, question or answer?
It's a question, James. How are you?
Very well, mate. What's on your mind?
So I noticed a strange phenomenon. I watch a lot of football, live football, and obviously away fans obviously are stuck in their section, cannot move at all.
Yeah.
And then in March, I went to a couple of non-league games for non-league day the FA put on.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the away fans would stand behind the goal that their team's attacking, and at half-time they'd swap ends. And I was like,
really?
okay.
What league was this?
Yeah.
What team? What club were you at? Can you remember?
So I watched, Billericay Town, and then the week after watched Canvey Island, both in the Ishman League, which is one tier below the Conference League North, which where Kidderminster are, your team.
Correct.
But basically the teams would basically at half time, it would just naturally basically go to the other end because the teams would swap ends of the other end, and both sets of away fans. Hendon was away at Canvey.
Yeah.
Wingate were away at Billericay, and both sets of fans on different days swapped ends. And I wondered if it was something that was legislated by the FA saying
you can't do that in the National League North. You can't do that in the National League North.
You can't?
No, you definitely can't.
Okay.
I mean, a couple of venues where you're actually penned in a bit, especially if it's a grudge match. Like when we were up at when Chester came to us for the playoffs, and then when we were up at Southport for the match that we thought was going to be our flipping lap of honour and turned out to be anything but. You're very normal, like being at a big club. You're very, very limited on where you can and can't sit. In fact, when we were at God, the match when we went up, I think 2 Kidderminster fans got busted because the only tickets they could get were at the home end. So they got into the home end and they didn't manage to disguise their enthusiasm, so they got slung out. They got slung out of the park. So you definitely can't do it in the National League North. But I've never seen that before, because I was going to say if both ends are empty, there's nothing to stop them, is there? But you're saying that they actually, because it's the hardcore that like to be behind their own goal, and they swapped ends.
Yeah, so swapped ends, flags, everything, drums, all basically just got up, went down the other end, and then the other kind of hardcore fans walked down the other end as well. I was like, I've never seen that. And then I saw it a week later. And obviously they weren't grudge matches.
No. Maybe that's relevant. I don't know.
I don't know whether that's relevant. I just wonder whether it was a natural occurrence or whether it was something that the FA legislated for.
Well, if it's legislated for, then we've worked out exactly where the cut-off point is, because it definitely doesn't happen in our league, and it happens in the Isthmian. But I'll find out. How come? How come they did it? Oh, hang on. And now we've got a controversy. You can do it in the National League North. It happens at Peterborough Sports. You just want to be at the end, for the goal, ideally. But I've never seen it happen. I've never seen it. It certainly doesn't happen at Agborough. Stay at the north end. Right, you're on. We'll try and find out. I don't know if it may just be to do with attendance and tradition rather than any hard and fast rule, but someone might know. Referees might know, in fact, or indeed people from the clubs that you've mentioned. Thank you, Steve. But all change at Kiddie next season. It's going to be a very, very interesting season. But this is of interest to a relatively small number of people currently listening to this programme, and I am aware of that. It's 12:45.
James O'Brien on LBC.
48 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Your mystery hour continues. We should crack on, really, and hopefully squeeze a few in. Doug's in Brighton. Doug, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Doug.
Maggots, James.
Yes, carry on. Why don't they drown, Doug?
Well, they do eventually. If you were to grab a maggot and put it in your pint pot full of water and hold it underneath, you'll see it looks silvery. Now, the reason it looks silvery is because it's covered in small hairs that actually help it move. But those small hairs trap the air.
Oh.
So because the maggot breathes through little holes down the side of its body called spiracles, it basically uses that air to survive when it's underwater until that air runs out, and then it will drown.
Never. So Michaela was right.
So they do drown eventually,
but they won't drown quick enough for Michaela in Norwich.
Exactly. No, they will stay alive because they've got their own little sort of packet of air around them that's held there by the hairs.
How absolutely fascinating. Qualifications?
I studied paleoentomology when I was at university, which is basically the study of bug bits.
And that is why they wriggle for fishermen for a little bit longer than you might otherwise expect, even though they're on a hook.
Exactly.
Okay, do you know, is this an urban myth, or is it true that fishermen put maggots under their tongue to keep them warm and wriggly before they thread them onto a hook? Have you ever heard that before?
I have no idea, but it sounds disgusting.
It does sound disgusting. I was told that at school, and it may have been something that the big boys told the little boys to sort of freak them out, or even to encourage the little boys to actually do it. I don't think I ever did, but I don't think it's a myth. Anyway, round of applause to Doug. What a lovely answer. I wasn't sure we'd get one for that. Michaela will be delighted. 12:50 is the time. Jan is in Kings Lynn, staying in Norfolk. Jan, question or answer?
It's answer, James.
Carry on, Jan.
It's an answer to the question about spiders.
Oh, yes. Natural History Hour.
That's the one. They don't come out of the plug hole, and they normally, if you wash them down the plug hole, they won't survive.
Oh.
They come out usually at night, and they're wandering around your house, and they may be looking for food. In the autumn, they may be looking for mates, and they climb up onto the edge of the bath and they fall in.
How do they get out?
Most of the time, they won't get out without a bit of help. Occasionally, they can. But normally, if you want them to get out, you need to drape a towel over the side or a long sheet of loo roll, and they'll climb up and get out.
A spider ladder?
A spider ladder, exactly that.
My first band was called the Spider Ladder. No, it wasn't. Qualifications, Jan?
In COVID, I was a real arachnophobe, and I joined the...
presumably before COVID you were as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't a symptom of the virus.
No, but
Carry
in
on,
COVID...
sorry. Yes, that's when you took action about it.
Yeah, because you can't call on people to come and get the spiders out your bath if you're not meant to.
No, of course you can't. Because you're isolating.
Yes.
So what did you do?
I followed the British Spider Identification Group on Facebook.
Oh, yes.
And I've learned loads about spiders, and I've also cured my arachnophobia.
That's that exposure therapy, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic news. Oh, and it's earned you a round of applause as well. Well, good Lord. What a saga. I love that. And there it is. So they fall in, but they need a little bit of help getting out. 12:52 is the time. There's reasons why I love this job. So I've got one message here off Denise. Absolute... Oh, no, hang on. That's a spider crawling out of her plug hole. It's a myth, says Phil in Grimsby, and Grimsby is where a lot of fishing takes place, about fishermen putting maggots in their mouths. Sorry, says Phil in Grimsby. And then Steve says, my dad used to do it. Oh, there it is. That's the nature of phone-in radio, isn't it? I think it is true, for the record, but Phil's never come across it in Grimsby. Steve saw his dad do it, so who are you going to believe? Lewis is in Putney. Oh, twice in a week, Lewis. You must have been buttering up the production staff on the programme.
I think they just forgot about Monday.
I think they're probably right.
But yeah, answer, James.
Carry on.
So it's the one about the skin and the Scottishness, as it were.
How long to breed out the gingers? If you're just tuning in, let me qualify that, because I don't want to have a Diane Abbott moment. The question was from a Scottish ginger who wondered how long it would take for his essential genetic inheritance to be affected by evolutionary mutation, so that his descendants, at what point would his descendants respond to the environment by being darker of hair and quite possibly of skin?
And the answer's coming from a ginger Scotsman as well, so although I don't have the accent.
Fantastic.
But anyway, so the answer would be it took approximately, we think, 8,000 to 12,000 years to develop the white skin and ginger hair that we see now.
Because we were all black to start with. All humans were black.
Don't tell Farage, but originally everyone in the UK was dark-skinned.
Yes. Did you see that Cheddar Gorge story?
Yes, I did.
Wasn't that extraordinary about the fella who actually has a direct familial link to the kind of Neanderthal that they found in the cave in Cheddar Gorge, and
pretty crazy.
It is pretty. So it took 8,000 to 12,000 years for us to become pale.
So logically, it would then take if the climate changed, it would take approximately the same amount of time to do it naturally. But as you pointed out, we travel a lot lot more these days and interbreed a lot more. So
and we're not as susceptible to the environment anymore.
Also, sun cream and stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Great answer. I wasn't thinking we'd get one on that. He'll be over the moon. Qualifications?
I have a degree in medical genetics and I'm ginger and Scottish.
Look at that. It's a hat trick of qualifications. Overqualified, perhaps.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, Lewis. 12:54 is the time. Stephen is in Manchester. Stephen, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Stephen.
The non-league football, changing ends, standing behind goals, etc.
I don't think I've ever seen it happen.
Oh, seriously? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I go to a lot of non-league football. But maybe Kidderminster's travelling... No, it's not always big enough. What am I talking about? But anyway, go on.
Well, it's not legislated for. It's just literally because there's very little segregation at that level of football. So the grounds are free to walk round, from one end to another. I attend a non-league football match at least once, if not twice, every single week during the football season, watching my team, who I've seen play at your ground a few times.
Who's that?
FC United.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, they've got quite a big following as well, so it's going to depend on police advice, probably, is it? And gate size.
We do get some segregation away games.
Yes.
Obviously, we are pending ourselves, but generally, what the caller said earlier was right. We stand behind one end when we're attacking at the first half, and then everybody goes to the other end at the second half. Sometimes it's quite a good idea. Sometimes if some set of fans don't move, it might not be quite as good idea as it seems in the first place.
Can get a bit tasty. Have you seen, as a fellow non-league fan, have you seen who Dagenham and Redbridge have signed?
Andy Carroll,
I know. Isn't that extraordinary?
FC United have signed Andre Wisdom this week, ex-Liverpool.
No, you're absolutely right. But I think Andy Carroll's a bit more of a headline maker at that.
Yeah, but he's not ditched a £100,000 portion in a ditch he couldn't find Derby County's ground, has he, though?
Round of applause for Stephen.
Trevor's in Tunbridge Wells. Trevor, question or answer?
I have an answer for you, James.
Carry on, Trevor.
It's the Tour de France answer.
Oh, good. Carry on.
There you go. I'm not sure if it's quite exactly what the guy was looking for, but in 1930, the inventor of the Tour de France, Henri de Grange, he introduced a team time trial. So it was the individual event as it was from 1903.
Yeah.
Became what was a team time trial. So it was divided into international teams, and I think France had either 4 or 5 teams representing North, West, East, South, etc. And it was actually made into a team event at that point.
Well, that'll do. Why do you think? Why do you worry that it wouldn't satisfy the person, Anthony, who asked the question?
Well, I think it probably changed back a little bit after the war. But
I see what you mean.
More of an individual event, but then it's become more of a team event as the teams have got more sort of, I suppose, as they got together and worked together. Yeah, exactly.
Qualifications?
I saw it on the ITV on the ITV programme just last week.
No, but that's perfect. I sometimes say in the introduction, I say that you could have done a master's in it, or you could have seen it on telly last night, and you literally did see it on telly last week. That's why qualifications are so interesting on Mystery Hour. Sometimes as interesting as the answer.
There you go. I'd say I am a committed mammal as well. So I'm a middle-aged man in lycra.
Oh, are you?
I got out there to the second and third stages of the tour this year.
Exciting. How much difference does the kit make? Honestly.
Well, a lot.
Does it really? In terms of speed and efficiency and all that kind of thing?
Definitely. Clothing, everything does.
How much is your bike worth? What have you spent on a bike?
I'm not allowed to say.
Go on, tell me. She's not listening.
It's in excess of 10.
Shut up.
Yep.
Carry on. It feels a bit paltry, but it's all I've got. There's a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See, it's a thing, It's a thing.
If he ever complains about his wife buying a new pair of shoes
we're
ever
presuming,
again.
A, that he's heterosexual, and B, that he's married.
Well, I'm all about assumptions. I'm all about assumptions.
I think I'll squeeze in Colin. What have you got, Colin? Question or answer?
Very quick answer of sorts on the water dowsing.
Carry on.
The guy that asked the question, you asked if he'd ever seen it in action. I actually recently have.
And it worked?
We bought property. A guy had to put in a water trench for us, a water supply trench, and he had to cross a number of water pipes.
Right.
He said that he was taught it by his dad. I thought it was all hocus pocus. His brother was there. He said, I can't do it. My dad can do it, but my older brother does it. He did it in front of me. I watched it work, and I had to go at myself and actually watched it work.
Well, you got the gift.
No science involved. I think it's just about how lightly you hold. He just had 2 bits of wire.
Well, there must be some science involved if the wires move in relation to the water.
I don't know the science. I'm just saying that I saw it.
I'll give you a round of applause anyway.
Thanks.
No, you're welcome. What was the name of the last fellow with the 10 grand bike? I'm going to send him a Mystery Hour game. He can play, Trevor. He can play it after his divorce. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player and the LBC app, where you can stay up to date on the top stories and opinion. You can put your news categories in the order you want. You can pause and rewind live radio and listen to a range of podcasts. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store now.
James O'Brien on LBC.